Well, hey everyone. I wish there was a better reason or occasion for this live stream today, but unfortunately, the thing that motivated me to schedule this live stream, and I thought it was really important to do it right away or as soon as I possibly could, is the brutal, appalling, horrifying attack on Salman Rushdie 2 days ago on Friday. Um, it's still shocking to think that this actually happened. And as I just wrote in the video description, it's one of those things where it's kind of strange. It was both shocking, stunning, but if you really think about it, it's kind of inevitable that something like this happened. If you just consider what happened with Salman Rushdie before, the fatwa against him, the death threats against him, and how he spent almost 10 years in hiding. And my understanding is that in the past few years, he's kind of eased up on the security details that follow him, the bodyguards, all those precautions. So I'm not, I mean, obviously, after what happened, it seems like the security was too relaxed at the event, considering the status of Salman Rushdie. So I suppose in that sense, it was inevitable if you just kind of look at humanity in a cynical, bleak way. It's just it's just still shocking to think of. I was just trying to put myself in his shoes, going through that kind of attack, and people should remember that this is a 75-year-old man. Like he's an old man, and to go through something so traumatic, physically, emotionally, I can't imagine it. Um, last I checked, so he had to go into surgery, and he had nerve damage to his arm. I believe he was stabbed in his liver, stabbed in his neck, and his agent talked about how he might lose one eye. So these are very serious, critical injuries that are going to be. There's no other way to say they're life-altering injuries, especially whether you're someone who's 20 years old or 75 years old. And I think it's just so upsetting to know that he's going to carry the physical marks of what happened to him for the rest of his life. And I I think we should also remember that it's very lucky that he survived. And I hope that he recovers quickly and that he continues to speak and advocate for what he's always been advocating for, and that what happened to him just brings that more attention to what he's about, what happened to him, and Islam's role in the whole thing, which we're going to discuss uh, later on this live stream. So before we get into any callers, I do see a few people in the queue to call in. I want to hear uh, from you, of course. I wanted to just give a quick recap of what happened in case anyone watching doesn't know all the details. I know it's been in the news a lot, but yeah, just in case you don't know what happened. So Salman Rushdie is an acclaimed novelist, and in the 80s, he wrote a book called The Satanic Verses that contained details that offended many people in the Muslim community, and it actually led to a fatwa being issued against him from the supreme leader of Iran at the time, the Ayatollah Khomeini. And in this fatwa, Khomeini called for his death, and Rushdie went into hiding for many years. People who were involved in publishing the book, translating the book, were assaulted. In one case, the Japanese translator of the book was actually killed. Although, as far as I understand, it's unclear why. I mean, we don't know for sure why he was killed. I don't think the person who did it was ever caught. But yeah, so Rushdie went to hiding for several years, and he's written books since then. He's kind of become this advocate for free speech uh, ever since. And ironically enough, when he went to this event to speak in New York, he was going to talk about the importance of providing an asylum, a safe haven for writers in exile who uh, can't freely express themselves, can't freely publish their works or write or whatever it is, make their films in perhaps their country of origin. And isn't it so tragic that this happened to him in the US, that someone got to him there? And so he was supposed to speak at this event, and as he was being introduced, someone ran onto the stage and wearing a black mask and assaulted both him and the person interviewing him. And as far as I understand as well, he was stabbed at least, Rushdie was stabbed at least twice, possibly more. And the suspect, the assailant, was apprehended right away. He's in custody right now. He's been charged with attempted murder, attempted assault, and he's pleaded not guilty. And Rushdie was airlifted to a nearby hospital, I think in Pennsylvania, where they took him to surgery, put him on a ventilator. He was unable to speak at first because he was on a ventilator. And the good news is, although he has sustained those very serious injuries, he's speaking now. He's starting the road to recovery. It's probably going to take a long time, I'm going to assume, just from reading the nature of the injuries. He's with friends, he's with loved ones. And the good thing too, and I am really happy to see this, is there's been a lot of support and solidarity for Rushdie from world leaders, from other artists. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on in the live stream as well. So that's the quick recap of what happened. And just to tell you a little bit about my personal connection with Salman Rushdie, or why he's so important to me. So when I was Muslim, I'm an ex-Muslim right now, for anyone new to the channel. When I was Muslim, I was vaguely aware of him because of the fatwa, and I knew of the existence of that infamous book, the Satanic Verses. My grandfather actually had it in his library, and so it was something I was always aware of. And what I understood was that he wrote blasphemous, offensive things about Muslims. I was never really interested in reading the book or reading about it. After I left Islam, I'd always heard that Salman Rushdie is this excellent writer, and a lot of his work is magical realism, surrealist. So it's one of those genres where it's set in our real world, but fantastical things happen in them. And so I decided to read some of his stuff. I read Midnight's Children, which I think is his most famous book, his most acclaimed book, and it's mainly about India. And I loved it. And so I did also read the Satanic Verses, and I thought it was a very interesting, very complex, very powerful book that explored so many things beyond just Islam. And one of the things it explored was just the immigrant experience of being someone from the East, from Asia, and trying to, figure out their identity while living in the West. And there's a lot of stuff in it about the clash between Eastern and Western cultures, civilizations, and the struggles of immigrants to kind of navigate those two worlds, because you always carry this chip on your shoulder, but also the sense of inferiority. And these are things that I could relate to as someone who immigrated to Canada from the Middle East. And so I've always admired that part of his work ever since, and also just admired the kind of, I guess he's been this person who's just been a public face, who's taken the brunt of all the criticisms and violent death threats from the Muslim community, which I think, I guess you could call him a lightning rod in that sense, which I think has allowed the conversation to change towards more criticism, legitimate criticism of Islam. And in that sense, he has been an inspiration for me. So again, it's very sad to see this. And it's one of those things where it's a reminder of the real risks that people like me, unfortunately, carry by doing this, and a reminder of why I do this anonymously. I'm not really worried about someone coming to kill me, but I'm aware that it's always going to be maybe a slight possibility that something like that could happen. And the risk increases the more prominent you become, because when you become more prominent, you become more of a threat to Muslims. They're more threatened, and if there's anything we've realized in these attacks and other attacks, that when Muslims are threatened, they lash out. And I think that's something that's sadly an aspect of human nature too. I will say at this point that it's not confirmed why this person did it, and I'm going to avoid saying his name because I feel like when people do these kinds of things, there's all sorts of issues going on, I'm sure, perhaps mental illness, but they're also doing it for attention. And I don't want to give this person any more attention than they've already gotten by mentioning their actual name, although obviously that name is out there. It's out there all over the news. And so I want to discuss a little bit about why he might have done this, what could have motivated them, and maybe kind of explore what about Islam could have led to such an individual doing this, because I think it's clear at this point to say that this person, Rushdie, wasn't attacked by this person for some other unrelated reason. I think that's highly unlikely. I think it's clearly to do with the fatwa against Rushdie's life. And what does that say about Islam? So those are the things that I want to discuss and hear from you about, actually. So there's a poll question in the live chat that everyone is welcome to just answer. And the question is simple: is Islam to blame for the attack on Salman Rushdie? So far, we got 27 votes, and the overwhelming majority says yes, Islam is to blame. 78% say yes, 19% say we don't know yet. So I'm kind of in the middle of that one. I guess we don't know yet, but it's very clear that Islam played some role in this, especially as some details have emerged about the background of the assailant, born to Lebanese parents in the U.S., and people who knew him have confirmed that he was a devout Muslim at some point in his life, and more details are going to start emerging. Yeah. So there is a link in the live chat as well for calling in. We do have a few people in here ready to go. Robert, I think you came in first, so I'm happy to get you in first. If you want to just share your thoughts, you can just give me one moment. I just want to say hello to a few people in the live chat. So we've got Shahroz Khan from Canada. I'm in Canada too. Welcome. We've got Reverend Tacos. Hello, Reverend Tacos. Good to see you again. We've got Chip from the UK. And who else have we got here? We've got quite a few people, actually. I'm really happy there's so many people joining. So yeah, let's see who else is here. Oh, hey, Shane. Hi, hey, Time Space. Yeah, lots of familiar names. So thank you so much for joining. And Robert, if you're ready to go, I'll get you in a couple of seconds. Just let me know if you're ready to go in the private chat. Okay, Robert is ready. So Robert, you're going to be added in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, can everyone hear me properly?
I can hear you loud and clear, Robert.
Okay, so this, you might not believe this, but I've actually been researching Salman Rushdie, or rather using him for my research for the past month. So even though you called this live stream very suddenly, I already had the material prepared.
Oh, wow, okay.
I didn't actually explore anything about if Islam is to blame. Like, I didn't really look at any religious aspect of it. I was really more researching a sort of double standard that I noticed amongst critics of Islam, and what happens to them when they criticize Islam or satirize Islam. I've heard people say that white people get it worse because they're accused of racism, but that is exactly the opposite of what I've experienced and what I've seen. I have noticed that, like, white Westerners, especially when they go to other countries, are treated with a lot of lenience, and they're easily forgiven in a way that, like, people from there are not. And I actually was researching to see if this is true for blasphemy cases as well. And I've noticed that even in Europe, the European cartoons that resulted in the most fatalities to the writers themselves were cartoons that had Muslim and North African staff, and that's Charlie Hebdo. So there were a few here. Hold on, let me get out my phone. Okay, so the European cartoons that I've researched that fall under this. There were, you remember those early in the 2000s controversies about cartoons. So the 5 ones that I researched were Jillen's Poston, Capitalist Piglet, Lars Vilks, Gregorius Neckshot, and Charlie Hebdo. And so in fact, actually, one of the people who died in the Charlie Hebdo shooting was an Algerian Muslim immigrant who was a staff writer on that show. And I don't doubt that maybe Charlie Hebdo, out of all the satirical writings in France that they could have targeted, they targeted the one with the Muslim writer, because, I mean, I just feel like, and I've just seen this, that people from a Muslim background are more likely to get worse consequences for criticizing Islam. And yeah. Oh, actually, something else that I found out while researching was that there was actually around the same time a Bengali cartoon that was actually released in Bangladesh, and that author got arrested for it, even though his cartoon was much better than Charlie Hebdo and any of the other ones. But anyway, you get the idea that, like, I've noticed that those, especially those Westerners who are in the West, they tend to not receive any physical consequences. There may be like some social shaming, but yeah, does that make sense?
Well, here's my theory. What I think it might be, and you can see it more with women,
Yeah.
ex-Muslim women who are or just even women who are from like the Indian subcontinent,
Yeah.
in particular, it seems, who criticize Islam, seem to get it very bad. And I think it might be because it's like an attack from an insider. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it feels more dangerous because they have that inside knowledge, and they have those family connections and ties, and they look like you, and they have your last name in some cases. So maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Because,
And
well, that's the thing, you could always dismiss the white person as, oh well, you just don't understand. It's easier to dismiss.
yeah. And what else was I going to say? Oh, actually, yeah, that one I can maybe say, if Islam has something to do with it, is I think, and I haven't read the hadiths or Quran on this, but I think it's considered a higher priority to kill apostates than to kill disbelievers. I'm not sure if someone could confirm that for me. So that might be an Islamic reason why that happens, more to people of their background. And yeah, community infighting is really real, and I have noticed that sometimes in certain communities the infighting is worse than the fighting with the outsiders, because it's such a small, tight-knit group. And yeah, like you're saying, it feels like a betrayal, like they're going against their entire world. And maybe the plot of Satanic Verses, I haven't read it yet, but maybe the plot of the Satanic Verses kind of reveals that, because I mean, it's a book about being an immigrant and also criticizing or blaspheming Islam. And I mean, those two things often, I mean, isn't that like a typical ex-Muslim struggle, like to have to deal with racism and also to have the your own community thinking so negatively of you that they want to kill you?
It really is. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great way of putting it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
thanks, Robert. To your earlier point that you brought up about whether the priority is to kill apostates over disbelievers, I'm not sure. So if
Mm-hmm.
someone knows more about that in the live chat, please let us know. I'm not sure, unfortunately. Robert, I wanted to ask you, how did you feel when you found out about the attack on Rushdie?
I felt absolutely terrified for all of my ex-Muslim friends. Specifically, like my friends who are from other countries who don't have their citizenship or their PR. And I'm just I just, if they, God forbid, for some reason have to go back to their home country as apostates, and if someone finds out, I'm just so scared that something's going to happen to one of my friends, and that's why I
Yeah.
don't ever reveal who of my friends is an ex-Muslim and who isn't, because I worry about that every single day. And I have a lot of ex-Muslim friends, so this is
Okay.
like, yeah.
So it's a growing concern. Just like, would you say your ex-Muslim friends have talked to you and said that this is a growing concern for them? Have you talked to them about the attack and what happened?
No, I haven't talked to them about the attack. But maybe I should ask them how they're feeling about it.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. I think it impacts a lot of different ex-Muslims in different ways.
Mhm.
I have a younger brother who's also an ex-Muslim, and I don't think he was even aware
Yeah.
that he was attacked. But my brother's kind of he's like the opposite of me in that sense, where he's not really engaged with Islam or the ex-Muslim community at all.
Yeah, I think it's being engaged with the ex-Muslim community that has, because it was on my, YouTube timeline that I first found out about it. So,
Yeah, I think I just found out about it just when I was logging into my email, and there was a big headline that popped up. And I was going to mention this too, but so I posted a video about just my initial raw reaction to what happened. It's there's a link to the video in the video description below.
yeah.
And my mother saw it. So my parents, they live in Europe, and they're not religious anymore either. And my mother just simply messaged me saying that she was worried about me, about what happened. And she's always been a little bit worried about me doing all this stuff, especially once I started doing videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
And this is the thing as well. I think there's a lot of ex-Muslims who they're not really worried about someone walking up to them on the sidewalk and just stabbing them the way Salman Rushdie was stabbed.
Mhm.
But there's always that 0.5% chance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I think I've gotten used to it.
Mhm.
But it's not easy because, again, like, and this is something I said in my video yesterday, we have to remember that this is a person who's a writer. He's a
Mhm.
novelist. He's not
Yeah.
a political leader. He doesn't have an army behind him.
Mhm.
He just writes words. And to think that me just saying words on a YouTube channel could lead to someone wanting to harm me is so scary to think about.
Yeah, and it makes it even harder to talk about some people whose writing is genuinely, incendiary and inciting violence. And we can't even talk about this now because people are just like, and even if you are inciting violence with your words, like, you don't get it to automatically be killed,
No, I completely
or
agree with
physically
that.
harmed, that's
Yeah.
just very, very bad. And I would never want something like that to happen to any of my friends or me for that matter.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, and there's one thing. There is maybe a social aspect to why so many people are willing to defend the killer, the attacker, even though they don't agree with what he did and they think that what he did should never happen. I noticed that the tone of their justification and the kind of like the exact way they deliver it is very similar to certain Jewish Zionists who see, for example, like indiscriminate bombings in Gaza, and they disagree with it and they think it's wrong. But there's a but, the very sinister but, like, yeah, it's bad, but, and the things they say after that but are very similar. Like, yeah, but this or that shouldn't have happened, and it should have been this, and it should have been that. And whether that's because of the religion itself, it's hard to say because, I mean, we have two completely different religions having the exact same pattern. So yeah, so that's my thoughts on possibly why.
Hmm.
Um,
I think that's definitely interesting. There has to be some connection, some correlation
yeah,
with what happened just the other day. Um, I'm hoping what will happen is in the coming days, weeks, we'll find out more about the motivations of this individual. Um, in a sense, I'm not particularly interested in why they did it. I think I'm just going to take a wild guess. So if you do something like this, then there's something going on in your life, like things aren't going well.
yeah,
Um, I just want people and even Muslims, I think in particular Muslims actually, to see the how the connection between their religion and what happened,
yeah,
because I think that's unavoidable. And I think it's a good thing to happen in that sense. If there's one good thing that could happen from this, is it's a wake up call. It's a
yeah,
wake up call for people to just examine how something like this could have happened.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. You
yeah,
don't have to do every single little thing that is said in the religion, you know.
yeah.
Um,
Robert, there's a question for you in the live chat, and I know this thing has come up a few times in the past, just in
yeah.
previous live streams. Someone was just asking, what are your preferred pronouns?
Oh, I don't want to say that because if I say it, people are going to do the exact opposite. So just
Okay,
choose whatever one. My name speaks for itself, but just choose whatever one and yeah, just don't worry about it.
okay, all right. Thank
Yeah.
you, Robert.
Mhm.
And yeah, I do have a few other people calling in. Is there anything else you want to just add before I let you go?
Um, oh, right, the South Park episode that was like received very negative attention for um depicting the Prophet Muhammad and making fun of the fact that
Ye-
they're depicting the Prophet Muhammad and making it like a joke. And um I noticed that throughout the entire episode they didn't mention a single thing about Islam other than that Muhammad's the prophet of Islam. And they didn't even say Muslims will be violent against you. They just said someone will kill you or bomb you or shoot you. And the group of people who was actually threatening to bomb and shoot them in the episode was a mob of gingers. It wasn't even a group of Muslims. It was just they wanted to extract Muhammad's essence to make themselves like immune from criticism, so that like the celebrities and stuff that are made fun of on South Park will never be made fun of again. Um, and both of the writers for that show, they I looked at their Wikipedia page and the controversy wasn't even mentioned in the
It
introductory
wasn't
paragraph.
really.
It wasn't even mentioned. Whereas
How?
Salman Rushdie, it's like in the second
It's
paragraph.
the second paragraph. How
Yeah,
long ago was the South Park thing? Because I know they did.
2006 or 7. Hold on, let me look
Okay,
at my phone.
I'm aware that they did an episode. I used to watch South Park
Yeah.
religiously.
Mhm.
Um, um, and I know there was an episode where they did like a religious super friends thing. So it was,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
Jesus, and
yeah.
but
That
this
was
is
an earlier
something
episode, yeah.
that's an earlier episode. Okay,
Yeah.
I
And
was
they
mixing them up for a moment.
yeah, and they mentioned it. They mentioned that he has one of the I think it was Kenny or someone who he has seen the Prophet Muhammad, and he was like mentioned something about religious super friends, and so I think that yeah, that's how they found out about him. But
Okay.
yeah, so I think that's all I have to say. I am looking forward to hearing other people's thoughts. So yeah, goodbye.
Well, thank you as always, Robert.
Hmm.
Good to have you here and to share your
Yeah.
thoughts. Take care. All right. Thank you again, Robert. And got a few other people in the live chat. Hello, Peter. Peter is saying greetings from the Netherlands. Hello, Peter. And Gerwalk is here. Hey, Gerwalk. Gerwalk says, I never knew you had family that was not religious either. Hope he remains safe. Yeah, so Gerwalk, my immediate family, so my parents and brother, are not religious. My brother and father in particular are very critical of Islam. Like me, they're just not as involved and invested as I am. The rest of my family, it kind of ranges. I have moderate relatives, and then I have some who are very, very religious. And for the most part, I mean, with all the religious ones, they don't know about what I'm doing here. They don't know that I'm an ex-Muslim even, and it's always been kind of weird in that way where I have to basically pretend to sort of be just like a bad Muslim or a lazy Muslim with them. Not ideal, but I figured it's an easier way, especially since I don't see them very often. But it is something that I've kind of wrestled with, because if I'm speaking against Islam here, shouldn't I also be doing it with my own family? Especially because I don't feel like my safety would be threatened, and I'm an independent person. But I guess that's a subject for another live stream. And Dan says there was a speech by Khomeini about Rushdie, and he said, freedom of speech is okay, but not when it offends the religious beliefs of others. They always want you to play by their rules. Okay, yeah, that's. I think I haven't heard this quote from Khomeini before, but I think that perfectly captures what I've heard a lot of Muslims say over the years about the whole freedom of speech thing. So thank you for sharing that. So I have Al waiting in the private chat. Al, can you let me know in the private chat if you're ready to go on the live stream? All right, Al is ready. Okay, Al, I'm going to add you in 3, 2, 1.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Am I coherent?
Yes, you are coherent.
Great. How do I address you today, secular spirit? Why should I refer you to us?
Well, my name is Aleem. Like the name I'm using for this channel is Aleem, so you can call me Aleem.
Cool.
You can call me secular.
Al. Yeah, cool. My name's Al, but obviously you can call me Ali if you want. But yeah, I'm Muslim. I'm not here to like rub salt on the wounds or obviously like be obnoxious and all that kind of stuff. I'm just really here to try to give an Islamic perspective, as the whole takeaway of this is Islam responsible for this? I don't think so. Islam doesn't really look. I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm not here to sugarcoat anything, but I don't think Islam would propose this because it's breaking the law. Islam, what is sacrosanct in Islam, is laws, promises, and to go into someone else's country, violate their law, it goes against any kind. It goes against Islam, to be quite honest. Even though, like, I disagree with blasphemy, I'm not for freedom of speech. I'm Muslim. I don't agree with all that. But what I believe in is the law and other people's laws. And because, like, for example, like another person brought it up, like back in the Byzantine area, like there was a lot of blasphemy there as well. People wouldn't go to like Constantinople, sneak and snap someone's neck and run off. But yeah, it's a case of this. Like, I'll parallel this. Like, I don't feel Islam's responsible for this. It's some crazy guy, and obviously, to be, we can't hold the schizophrenics like responsible for Islam, because there's going to be always crazy people. There's vegan terrorists. There's vegan people who bomb meat centers. Obviously, yeah, that's the end of my monologue. What's your thoughts?
So what you're saying with the vegan comparison is there's vegans who do violent things, who are terrorists, but you can't really blame veganism for their actions, and the same kind of thing goes to Islam.
Yeah, I think that within any sect idea, anything that is in the world, there's always a schizophrenic, crazy guy, and there's a 1.8 billion of us. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of crazy people of us. I don't agree with going to someone else's country and stabbing them in the neck, because obviously that breaks the law. Blasphemy law, that I have my own opinions on that. I can get to that later. But with this, and in terms of crazy people, it's happened since the beginning of time. It's not going to change, to be quite honest. And if you're being pragmatic, every group ideology is going to have crazy people, basically.
So the first thing I want to say is I do agree with you on a few things.
Yeah.
So I think it's clear, based on what we know so far, that this person acted individually, and I think it's also clear that this was the behavior of someone who clearly, as I mentioned earlier, life probably wasn't going very well, and because someone doing something like this, there's some issues going on.
Yeah, murder is hard. Like, sorry to like, go sorry,
Well, I'm gonna ask you a question in a second.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there, and I agree that you can't just lump in all Muslims with the actions of this person.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Muslims who I've talked to some Muslims actually in my personal life
Yeah.
since it happened, who said it was a terrible thing. There's a lot of Muslims that have condemned what happened on social media. So obviously, not all Muslims think that this was a good thing. And you can, and I've heard that explanation before that you shared, that you can say that you have to respect the laws of where you are, and also that Islam is a religion of peace. You shouldn't be killing people like this.
I don't
So
agree with that,
I've
but yeah, I don't agree with the Islam is peace, but yeah, sure, carry on. Yeah.
well, I'm saying this is what I've heard many
Oh
Muslims
yeah,
say.
fair enough. Yeah, yeah.
So, but my question for you
Yeah.
is, okay, with all that being said,
Yeah.
why did this individual target Salman Rushdie? Like
Well,
what?
there's a clear
From what we
causal link.
know, from
Okay,
what we know.
there's a clear causal link. The Salman Rushdie is a provocateur. He has done things in the past that have offended people. 1.8 billion of them. One of them, after about 40 years, has decided to go to New York, violate laws, and stab us on the neck. He has to be crazy because murder. Look, even soldiers. I've read a lot about soldiers and the act of killing. The act of killing isn't easy. In the warfare, when people have guns and people trying to kill them, people purposely try not to shoot at the person because murder and killing is a very, very hard process. It's not easy for someone to go kill someone like that with passion. It takes a they can't be normal. They can't have it all in there. So what to your main point is, what is the causal link? The causal link is Salman Rushdie is a provocateur. He made a book called The Satanic Verses. I do want to read it out of curiosity, just for the sake of it, but I've got a massive reading list. But from my understanding is he said some provocative things in it. Um Aisha Muslim's wives being brothels and like just some things that just were outright blasphemic. He had a fatwa on him by Khomeini to start a cold war for Iran to assert dominance. And from there, there's a lot of book burnings, etc., etc., etc. He has a lot of smoke. He was a target for a very, very long time. Out of 1.8 billion Muslims, one of them snuck through. It was gonna, to be quite honest, I always thought it's going to be eventual that's going to happen. It's just a matter of time when it happens, but it happened. I'm not celebrating, but I don't care at all. He's a provocateur. And there's a lot of, I don't want to sound rude or like so apathetic, but it's a case of, I'm so desensitized to the world. So much things are going on. People being locked up in communist camps in China. So much things happening. Innocent people are getting killed and murked. Like, I don't really, sorry, thank you, friendly Muslim. Yeah, so it's hard for me to care about Salman Rushdie when he's a provocateur. It's like if you're in a duel in the Wild West, you pull your gun out to shoot someone and you get shot in the face. Like, it's sad, but I'm not surprised.
But like you almost make it sound as if he had it coming. Like you don't feel sad for him because it almost sounds like you're saying he deserved it.
I'm not saying, but to borrow an example from someone else, like if I was to wear a placard saying I hate N words, and I got shot in the face and lynched or whatever, or if I ate a beef burger in India, knowing well I'll be lynched like a doner kebab, it wouldn't be fair to say I had it coming, but I should know better, to be shouldn't I?
So he should have known better because there's going to be one wacko within the Muslim community who's going to kill him.
But let's be realistic.
Is that
Obviously,
what you're
if it
saying?
no, but let's be real, frank, and realistic. Let's just cut all that stuff. Like he knew what he was doing, wouldn't he? Like it's a massive step to like
So
do that.
here's what I'll say. Like
Sure, sure.
he knew he was being provocative,
Yeah, yeah,
for sure. And in case anyone hasn't read the book, so I've read the book, and the main thing I think that would be offensive to Muslims is, and you alluded to this a bit, that there's an alternate version of Islam
yeah,
depicted in the book. It's in the dreams of one of the
yeah, yeah,
characters, and in the alternate version, there's a brothel in the town
yeah,
that's
yeah,
supposed to be Mecca, and the prostitutes in the brothel take on the names and personalities of the
yeah,
Prophet
yeah,
Muhammad's wife, just so people can
yeah.
understand what you're
Context,
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah,
So
yeah.
he knew he was being provocative when he wrote that. Um, but I don't think you can compare it to someone who, as you said, is walking around uh, in a black neighborhood and saying, I hate N words,"
It is,
because,
isn't it?
uh,
Yeah,
because it's a fiction novel, it's a book, and I think that falls just into artistic
Okay.
expression.
But
Does
Johnny
does
Rebel. What about Johnny? Sorry. What if Johnny Rebel went to Compton and sang the song "Nigger Hating Me"? If he sang that and his artistic freedom, like, what would you think would happen to him if he's singing his freedom expression, "Nigger Hating Me," Johnny Rebel, the Boondock song, like,
okay? Well, so there's
yeah,
like a clear distinction.
sure,
So
sure, sure.
there's people who say disgusting things, horrible
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
There's people who even advocate for terrible, horrible things. I think that's a separate
What?
thing. Advocate for horrible things.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, but I think that's a separate thing from what ends up happening to them, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah.
So you can criticize that person, you can vilify that person, you can ostracize that person, uh, but to especially when you think of just the level of comparison, this
Yeah.
person wrote words, and
But
he's
that's your vote. That's it. Okay, that's your worldview, isn't it?
it is my worldview, yeah. But
As
what I'm
opposed to someone else's.
I agree with you, but what I'm saying is, in my worldview,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Agreed.
there can't be this thing where someone writes something, and then the normal expectation within a society is, oh well, some people who are offended by what he said uh, are going to just assault him or kill him. Like that can't be just the status quo of a society, because if you just imagine a society where people all over the place were kind of doing that. I didn't like what you said in this book, I didn't like what you did in this,
Yeah.
so I'm just going to kill you.
Okay.
A chaotic society, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I agree, but that's your worldview as opposed to someone else. You may feel that way, and by all means, go ahead. If you're being freedom of expression and nothing's religious sacrosanct, then that's okay. That's cool to you. But that's what I said before. Like, what he did before, he went into a land where the laws where he believed in weren't sacrosanct, and he did that. But if someone in Iran or Saudi Arabia or whatever gets angry and decides to do whatever, cool within those borders, but to cross borders, sorry, I'm diverting just a bit. My main thing is basically you have your opinion, which you're completely well right to, but other people have theirs, and just because you have yours, you can't enforce it onto them. Like the same way they can't enforce it onto you. So the same way they can't say, "Oh, you can't do this," you can't say that as well. Basically, sorry if I've not verbalized that correctly.
Okay, I
Yeah,
want to address that in a second,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
before it's going to tie into what I'm going to ask you
yeah. Sure,
in a
go
bit.
ahead.
So my question for you next
Yeah, yeah.
is: do you think the fatwa against Salman Rushdie was justified?
To be quite honest, I have my own opinions on this. To be quite honest, because the fatwa was only there for Ayatollah Khamenei to assert his dominance in the Islamic world. It was part of a Cold War. Kim Gatta's Black Wave book. Have you read that? Kim Gatta's Black Wave. It talks about this. How it's just political. To be quite honest, I personally don't care about Salman Rushdie. I don't give a shit about him. People like him thrive on my attention and my offense. I don't care. I refuse to have an opinion. If there's a fatwa or not fatwa on him, I personally don't care.
Okay, and I appreciate that opinion of yours,
Yeah,
because speaking for when I was Muslim, this was the
yeah,
one
yeah,
that made most sense to me, because you're talking about God, you're talking about one of the biggest religions in the world, and if
yeah,
you're a believer, this is the religion of truth. Like this is the truth, and
yeah. Absolutely.
so in that sense, what does a Muslim care what some writer says in some book? It's like I would compare it to assuming Islam is true. It's like
Yeah,
the equivalent of a fly coming at a
yeah.
giant. It's just a minor nuisance that shouldn't impact you. So with that being said, okay, so you don't care,
So
which I
look,
understand. But
I
hold
speak
on,
for
hold on.
myself.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah,
I
yeah,
speak
yeah.
for myself,
I know you're
not for the
speaking for
whole
yourself.
people. Yeah,
Yeah,
carry
yeah, I
on,
know you're speaking for yourself.
carry on.
So my next question is: do you think that someone who, according to your understanding of Islam, do you think that
Uh-huh.
someone who uh, criticizes, or maybe that criticizes isn't the right word, someone who says offensive, blasphemous things about the Prophet Muhammad deserves some kind of punishment for doing that beyond the punishment that God will give him?
What's the
Does
context?
Well, the context is just what I said. Someone says something blasphemous, offensive about the Prophet Muhammad.
But obviously, there's a lot of variables. Is this person in Islamic lands? Is he in Piccadilly Circus or Speaker's Corner? Where is he?
Well, can I ask you why that distinction is important?
Because if a, well, this will lead me to say something. Obviously, if someone's in the Islamic Caliphate and they're openly talking shit about the government, then obviously they need to be punished, don't they? But if they're in the opposite, if they're in a different country where laws are different, then sure, why not? But that's why I said I don't care, because
Okay.
yeah. So, but yeah, like I said, if that, that's why I say context is very important. You can't just hope for the best. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. So let's talk about if Salman Rushdie had said this in a country that's an Islamic caliphate following
yeah.
Sharia law. What do you think should happen to him in that context?
If he made, say, satanic verses in a Sharia country, yeah, is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, I believe the judicial system, wherever they think is right, as per Sharia, should go. As is their country, like how Salman Rushdie went to United Kingdom and he used his freedoms there. So I believe in whatever's laws there.
So, okay, here's my problem with you saying that is
Sure.
because there's a lot of countries, Muslim and non-Muslim
Yeah.
alike, that have messed up laws, draconian laws. There are some countries that
Yeah.
are being run by dictators, and these dictators are not acting in accordance with Islam. Let's say if they're in a
I
Muslim
agree.
country, but what you're saying makes it sound as if, well, even if I feel like the law is too cruel, it's the
I
law
don't
of the
say that. I
country.
don't think. I don't think it's cruel. I think if you're talking shit about a government and you're being a rebel, I think you should be punished. I don't think it's cruel. Like if you're being blasphemous and in a Muslim country, I think you should be executed. To be quite honest, unless you're crazy, or there's because obviously there were some philosophers in back in the day like Ibn Sina who are not blasphemous. They just had weird opinions. They weren't really. They shouldn't be executed. But if you're being outright hostile and you're being a provocateur for the sake of being a provocateur, then obviously you deserve the punishment. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, to be quite honest. But like I said, you have your opinions in your region or wherever
Okay.
you are. They have their opinions. Well, who's right,
All right.
who's wrong? We just
Okay.
it's like the Spider-Man meme. We're all pointing fingers at each other. Like who's right, who's wrong? Like you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, and so
Yeah,
the next question I want to
sure.
ask you is, why do you think meting out that punishment, enforcing that punishment, is justified or a good thing in the context that we just discussed? So execution, being put to death. If you're being a provocateur, you're saying
Yeah,
offensive, blasphemous things about Islam, and you're in a Muslim Sharia law following country, why is that a good thing?
a good thing. Well, it's a bigger philosophical question answer, basically. But like it curbs down dissent. It keeps people in order because, as you know, back in the days there's apostasy wars and all that kind of stuff. Like if you're being outright blasphemous to the government, sorry, the ruling state, sorry, pause, rewind. So if you're being in open rebellion to the gut state, then in any kind of society in the world, if you object to them, you're going to get punished. But I can't decide to say, Queen, F you, I'm not paying tax anymore. Also, I'm going to pee on this British flag. Like, it doesn't work like that. So, again, it's not about good or bad. It's just what is law. And if the law is, if you're being bad, I'm a pragmatist. So if you're violating the law, I believe you should get punished. This is more than theology. It's more about common sense, in my opinion. And a book like Salman Rushdie, we also believe in stopping fitna, like public kind of sins. And this is a massive, massive sin. If it's out in the public, and that's what makes it so extreme. As you probably are aware, like in Islamic State, if you commit a sin, if you do it in public, you probably get executed. But if you do it in private, you probably won't get executed as long as you have 4 witnesses witnessing you doing it. But this goes on to my point of this is a public dissent calling out the government saying, what are you going to do about it? And obviously, if you're challenging the government and the government makes its move, then it is where it is, though, ain't it? Am I wrong in saying that, to be quite honest? Like, am
Well,
I wrong?
here's my concern. I
Sure.
understand where you're coming from, but here's my concern with kind of
Yeah.
following this line of thought is, what if your government becomes corrupt? What if your government is harming the people? If you follow the logic that you're outlining,
Okay, sure, sure.
then the oppression will continue, and any kind of dissent, even if it's legitimate, will be silenced,
Well,
and
leave.
people will be scared. Well, you make it sound so easy, like
No, people do. Like, you know, like Syria, it's not easy, but Syria, that's case in point. People
what?
have been crossing oceans, dying to escape President Bashar al-Assad. People, you can't leave. That's a big thing in Islam. Obviously, if you're not in a place you like, you can leave. This world is for ours, so we can go anywhere we want, basically. So you can't leave.
So people shouldn't have the right to be able to. So what you're saying is, oh, if you live in a dictatorship and you don't like it, just leave.
Why would you want to live? Why would you want to live in a dictatorship?
Well, what
But
if it's
it's a
your?
good
What
point.
if
Yeah,
I see? But to be honest with you, Al, you're coming off like very privileged when you say that,
I'm not, bro.
because
I sleep on the floor. I live very, very humble. I
well,
live on the. I
this is
literally.
why this
I
is
eat
surprising.
dates.
Then
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this is why it's surprising, because you're why should a person who was born in their homeland, who has lived for generations in their homeland, why should the onus be on them to leave because their ruler is a dictator?
Because why would they want to live bad lives? It's like the exodus of the Jews or the Burmese. It's like
These people don't want to leave; they're
yeah,
forced to leave
exactly. Also,
because their lives
furthermore,
are being destroyed.
the Jews did not want to leave Germany as well, but if you're being pragmatic, they had to leave. They couldn't just stay there to be in camps. Anne Frank would rather choose to stay in England and stay in Germany. Let's be pragmatic here. Obviously, like if you're living in a dictatorship, if Russia is turning communist and Stalin's getting in power and things are making a drastic turn, you don't stay there, you leave. If England turned communist tomorrow, next week, I would leave. Like, let's be realistic here. Sure, we have a cultural heritage here, but if you don't like a place, you don't have to stay there. Who's stopping you? Unless you're in North Korea.
But what if you could stay and fight? And I don't even mean necessarily
Yeah,
fight
yeah,
as
yeah.
in like grab a gun and
Fight the
shoot
system. Yeah,
people,
yeah,
but fight yeah, exactly, fight the system. You make it seem
yeah.
as if, well, you shouldn't just do that. Just move
No,
somewhere
no,
else.
no. It's not that I'm saying if you're pulling your gun out to duel, and if you get shot in the face or pulling your gun out, then obviously you have to live your consequences. Like I'm a very bold person. I take risks. If I fluff my risks, my business decisions, then the onus is on me because I took the risks. And likewise, if you're playing the risk of, okay, I'm going to challenge this person, I'm going to go against the grain, there's risks in benefit and risks in loss. That's just the way how the world has worked since the beginning of time. So you can decide to try to rebel and conquer, obviously, the society, but it may not work. And if you fail, then you probably will die. This is how it works, really. Or you may just end up in a less position, to be quite honest.
Which I agree with you is the case, but like it seems like
Yeah, sure.
well, my issue with it is that
Yeah.
you're making it sound as if well, like if you're just a rational, pragmatic person, you either obey the oppressive laws or you just leave.
But that's just how it works since the beginning of time. Did Moses or Jude, did you stay in Egypt? Like I'm struggling to understand like the disconnect. Like, obviously, if you're in a place where you're not, the economy is not good, your rule of the tyrant is overtaxing you, your life is not going well, it would make sense not move. That's how people cross seas. That's how people have left Syria and are going for Europe, getting absolutely going through all the pitfalls, crossing rivers and dying to escape. Because dying and trying to move away is better than being under Bashar al-Assad and being blasted with barrel bombs. It's just
Yeah.
we don't have a say in it. Like I read a book called what was the book? Good Economics for Hard Times, and a lot of these migrants, they don't have a choice. They're at the example was shark's teeth. Basically, they're moving forward. They don't have a choice. So sometimes people move. If they have to move, they have to move. You don't have to stay in the place. So if you're apostate or a lesbian or wherever you are, and you're in a Muslim country, you don't really have to stay. You can move. No one's forcing you to stay there. You can go into orgies at Las Vegas. It is what it is, isn't it? You're in
Again,
disagreement, but yeah, sure,
again, like it's just like you seem so dismissive of it, because if
sure, sure,
someone was
sure.
to
I
follow
apologize
your
for doing. Yeah,
I'm just saying, if you just think about what you're saying, and we don't have to linger on this too much longer. I think we
yeah,
just
sure, sure.
disagree. But
Yeah,
if you
sure.
follow the logic of what you're saying, is like, let's say you were enslaved by someone, like they literally
Yeah.
captured you and made you a slave. Well, you don't have to be a slave. You can just go jump off a building and kill yourself.
That's a different conversation because slaves don't have freedom.
But they have
You,
the freedom. They have the freedom to just end their own lives, so they don't have to be slaves anymore, right?
but they don't own. Is a different example. It's a different example from being in like Louisiana, chained up, getting a pickaxe and banging a rock, or being in Russia before Lenin took over. You can move. You can go away. You don't have to stay there. It's two examples. I sympathize with slaves and sympathize with oppressed people, but not all situations are uniform. You can't apply slaves to what people in a modern era do. So, are you like you're from Arabia? Would you say you were enslaved? How are you here now? How are you enjoying the fruits of your freedom?
No, I was not enslaved,
Yeah,
uh, and I was able to move just because I
yeah,
had the privilege of having
yeah,
parents who could afford it,
yeah,
who could afford to
yeah, yeah.
get me an education in the Western world, to afford
Okay,
the plane ticket, and it does come with a price. Like
okay,
I don't. I've never been to my
okay.
homeland.
Oh
I
wow.
don't really have roots in any country. My family's scattered all over the
Oh no.
world. We
Oh
don't
no.
really have a My background's Palestinian, by the way.
Oh, Palestinian.
Um,
Never knew that. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Awkward.
So
Yeah.
I'm saying it does come at a price, and like now I'm here in Canada, and I basically, and my parents aren't even here with me, so I have to start
Oh
something
no.
from scratch.
Oh
So
wow.
that comes with all sorts of, like, I think I handle it better than other
Yeah.
people. What I'm saying is it comes at a price. But
Yeah.
maybe we
I
can have this.
understand now. I understand your point now because obviously people don't want to leave Palestine. That's the whole point. Let's
Yeah.
not leave Palestine. Stay there because if you go, yeah, I get it. I
Okay.
sympathize now.
And
Yeah, I get
I
it.
do understand your
Yeah.
point as well. But just so we can kind of stay on topic, and I think we have to kind of end this in a bit just to give other
People are
people
getting
a
fed up.
chance.
And tacos is.
um,
Uh,
no, we can talk just like a couple more minutes. There's one
yeah.
question I
Cool.
wanted
Cool.
to ask
Yeah.
you.
Sure.
So just going back to Salman Rushdie and the book he
Yeah. Yeah.
wrote, which is the crux of everything that happened.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So you haven't read the book you mentioned, and
I kind of want to, but I got a massive reading list. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
understand. I do recommend reading it just so you can understand what
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
fuss is about. It's
Yeah.
not an
That's
easy
what.
book to read, by the way, but I think it's something that you'd find interesting because it covers a lot of things beyond just those aspects of Islam. Um,
Yeah.
but here's my question for you. So
Sure.
you said that Salman Rushdie did it to be provocative. Like, and I want to ask you, why do you think? So he's this established writer, already successful. Why do you think, just based on how much you know
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
and just understanding the world, why do you
Yeah.
think he chose to include those details in his novel?
There could be many reasons, to be quite
Well,
honest.
I want to just hear your speculations,
Yeah.
and it's okay
Yeah.
if they're just speculations.
It's hard. It's hard to like because things are complex, and there's normally three reasons for a thing, more than one reason. So maybe it's because he was an ex-Muslim and he wanted to sneak in these details. That's the cynical side of me thinking it. Maybe he just wanted to go against the grain and be a creator and push new ground. That's the realistic answer, probably. Or thirdly, he just wanted to cause a reaction. To be quite honest, that's what artists do. They want to cause a reaction
Okay.
to go
Yes.
obscure.
Okay. Okay. Let's stick to this
Yeah,
one thing here. Why
yeah.
do you think he wanted to cause a reaction?
Because
So you
it,
know
it
that
could be.
there's some
Yeah.
people, obviously, I've been hearing all about this Andrew Tate
Oh,
person
I hate him.
lately. We don't have to talk about him. But
Oh God.
there's those people who clearly what they do is they say controversial, outrageous things just to get attention because that gets them traffic and ads and money and whatever. So here's one possibility that Salman Rushdie included those details because he knew it would be provocative and it would attract attention and it would get him more book sales. So that's one possibility, and
I
I
wouldn't
agree
say
that
that
that's no, no.
because he was.
I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
that's one possibility.
yeah, yeah.
What I want to ask you are what are other possibilities for why he was uh, being that provocative
I think
specifically?
he was a big author before this book, but
Yeah.
he may have had a he just may have had deep seated resentment against Islam, and he may have used that to channel it. To be quite honest, because apostates aren't new; they're not a new phenomenon. They've been going on since forever. So he may have been able to just use this book as a way to outlet his own feelings about Islam, be blasphemic or whatever, and furthermore, just push go against the grain. He may have thought and said, "Oh, I'm going to be a new kind of author and just do something revolutionary. I'm going to be provocative. I'm like, be divisive. Because some artists literally thrive on being divisive. They don't just make things like there's many books. Sorry, can we get a good? So I'm reading the comments. So yeah, there's many people who just love to be divisive for the sake of being divisive. So it may be a case of he may have he may have done this because he had deep-seated resentment against Islam. From what I've read, he pretended to be Muslim for quite some time. He was never really Muslim. So yeah, where I stand is he may have been.
Well, I just want to
contrarian.
just address one thing. So
Yeah.
he pretended to be Muslim when he was in the middle of hiding
Yeah.
after the fatwa, because he was hoping that he was afraid for his life, and he was hoping that he'd be able to just go back home and return to a sense of normalcy. So I'm not saying that he was right to do that, but it was the act of a desperate person who was afraid for his life, and I think that just should be noted.
I don't think he was a Muslim when he wrote satanic verses, though. I don't think.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't.
Yeah.
Sorry, what I was saying was he said that he had reverted to Islam after everything happened, when he was in hiding.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so here's one thing I want to say, and then we can go on to the next caller.
This conversation's gone long. Yep, sure.
Yeah. So what I think is the reason why, and this is based on me reading the book. The reason why he included those details about the prophet's wives and brothels and all that is because he wanted to challenge the taboo of talking about Islam. So I'm going to explain this in a bit more detail.
I agree.
So he wanted to challenge the taboo because, especially when you're Muslim, and you kind of describe this as well, if you're in a Muslim country, it's the law of the land, and it's this thing that is always there that you take for granted as the truth, and that is the basis and foundation for life, the meaning of existence, and the meaning of what is good, and going against it is the meaning of what is bad. So I think in the case of someone like Salman Rushdie, he's asking the question of, what if we're wrong about that? What if there are things that are problematic about Islam that we need to question, we need to look into, but we can't, because it's upheld in such reverence that any kind of dissent, any kind of questioning of it is shut down or unacceptable within society. So he was using this novel as an outlet to just, because he doesn't say it's Islam. He says he says that in a dream, and I'm not saying that makes it not about Islam. I'm just saying he's using it as an outlet to possibly explore the things that might be problematic about it. And so my feeling on this, just so you can understand my feeling, is I understand how it can be offensive to Muslims, but what I think is interesting about it is that it's an opportunity for Muslims to look at their own faith and think, well, what are their issues about it, and get a better understanding of their faith, and wherever that leads them. And my feeling is that some people are afraid to do that because they're worried that they might leave Islam, and they don't want to deal with the spiritual chaos, or even just the chaos in life that might happen if they were to leave. And
fun fact, I did.
I'm sorry.
Fun fact, I'm an ex-Muslim. I was an ex-Muslim, so
you were an
5 years.
Okay.
5 years. So I had the same kind of ideas as well. Like, it's a bit too convenient and all that kind of stuff. But so I don't want to divert and not give you respect for what you said before. So in terms of Salman Rushdie and his ideas, I do agree with you. I think he's trying to use the book just to push his ideas along, because it is hard to obviously be quite vocal and bold with your opinions. So I do agree with your opinions, to be quite honest. I fully agree with them.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that, Al. And maybe we could have another conversation another day. I think it would be interesting. Do you know Friendly Muslim?
Yeah, he's a really, really good brother. He's a really, really nice guy.
Okay.
Honestly, I really respect him.
Okay, so maybe we can connect and discuss more. I think we have our agreements and we have our disagreements for sure, but I'm glad we were able to talk.
I'm glad you didn't get offended. I was scared you may get, because obviously I've made such contentious things, and I was trying to not rub salt in the wound. So I was trying to be respectful to you.
I can't. I can't deny that I'm not offended by a few things you said.
Yeah.
But it's okay. We should be able to talk.
Cool. Yeah, but I'm not trying
Yeah.
to rub salt in the wound. Just for
I
the record.
I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. I appreciate you just sharing your thoughts.
That's cool, bro.
Okay.
Yeah. Take care. Allah
Okay.
Hafiz. Thank you.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much, Al. Bye.
Bye. How do-
So, thank you for that, Al. I think there's a lot to unpack there, and I don't want to divert too much from the main subject of the stream. Although I think a lot of the stuff is relevant, I do want to get to the next caller. I want to just highlight two comments. There's a lot of interesting comments in the live chat about this. Maybe Potato Apostato. We can discuss this a bit. You're next up. Potato Apostato says, by that logic, and this is the logic that was explained by Al, Nazi laws were okay in Germany. I think Al would probably dispute that. But let's discuss that in a second. And I have another person, I don't know how to pronounce this, Al-Qibali says, what happened to Rushdie is haram. Read the whole Quran, just read it front to cover and tell me if that's the energy it gives. Okay, so this is a Muslim sharing their Muslim perspective as well. Thank you for sharing that. Mojake says, I'm not offended by telling me I should be executed in an Islamic State. That is, I'm sorry, Al, if you're still watching, that is essentially what you're saying. Like, if you're saying offensive, blasphemous things, then you should be executed. And it's tough. It's tough to kind of find the common ground after you saying that. Although I do understand why you're saying that and where you're coming from. But again, this is something we can maybe discuss in a future live stream. So, with that being said, let's see if you're here. Potato Apostato, if you're ready to go, I'm ready for you. Just let me know in the private chat. Okay, you are ready. Okay, I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. How's it going?
All right. I have a lot of thoughts about what Al was saying, but I know this is not the topic of this conversation.
You know what? So here's what we can do. So maybe you can just spend a couple minutes just telling me your thoughts on what happened to your own personal thoughts about what happened to Salman Rushdie, and then we can kind of talk about Al's thoughts for the rest of the discussion. Is that okay by you?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that
Okay.
both of these are going to tie in a couple of times together.
Okay. Yeah, I'm game. And maybe you could tell people who might not be familiar with you, your background, where you're kind of coming from.
For sure. So this is my first time being on a live call like this. So I don't know how much information I should be sharing yet.
As much as you're comfortable with.
For sure. So I am an ex-Muslim from an Arab background, if you cannot tell by my accent.
A little bit.
And yeah, I think that's as much information I'm going to give about myself.
Okay, that's fine.
But when I was thinking about what happened to Salman Rushdie, the first thing that came to mind is that Muslims, or at least that's how I used to think when I was Muslim, it's very hard to separate yourself from religion, where if you perceive any offense to religion, you take it as a personal offense to yourself. And I'm not saying this is how all Muslims are. I'm just saying that's a lot of what I've seen. That's how I used to feel. And when you get such a personal offense to yourself, I don't know, it makes it harder to not take a violent approach, I would say, or makes it easier to take a violent approach.
And I completely agree with you on that, because it becomes associated with your identity.
100%.
Yeah.
And another thing that I was thinking about is, so there's this book called Acclaimed. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's basically a historical novel that talks about the Creed of Assassins that was later on the game Assassin's Creed was based on. But the creative assassins like they were an actual group of people following a sect of, I believe, Ismailism. Anyways, the book talks about how their leader, Hassan ibn Sabah, was able to convince all of these people that he had like the keys of heaven and hell, that God gave him the keys to heaven and hell. And later on in the book, it shows how much belief they had, to the point that if you're familiar with the game, you might be familiar with
I've played it. Yeah.
So the origins of the leap of faith is that Hassan ibn Sabah was going to start a war with, I'm not sure who it was, but basically the other army. They sent like some messengers to Hassan to basically warn him from going to war with them. And what he did, he ordered 2 of his followers to climb on top of a tower and jump to their death. And they did it immediately because they believe that the moment they do this, they're going immediately to heaven.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I believe this applies to Islam as well. When you combine those 2 elements of blind faith that what you're doing by protecting Islam, you're doing the work of God. You're basically getting more hasanat, you're getting more reward points. Plus the fact that you feel more personal about it. It kind of just sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And you have to consider that there's so many people of our background living in the US, Europe, Canada, and they have that identity crisis that I kind of alluded to a bit earlier, where you're away from your homeland, but you don't really belong. You don't have those roots in the new country you're in. And let's say you're young and maybe you don't have a wife, or maybe your life is not fulfilling for whatever reason, relationships or career, and you feel lost, and so you turn to Islam because this is the religion of your forefathers. And following the logic that you just outlined, you might go down this path of doing something like this person did. And we saw it with the people who joined, who were living in Canada, the US, and the UK, and joined ISIS.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to say you see it in the suicide bombers, the people who do things like driving a truck through people. And it is scary.
It's that's putting it lightly. It's terrifying, and I commend you for doing what you do. I really don't know how you do it, but please stay safe, man.
Thank you. I guess we can now just talk a little bit, because it is relevant, about Al's feelings on the subject of Salman Rushdie. So it was kind of inconsistent, if you ask me, to be honest, because he was saying that it was wrong for that person to attack Salman Rushdie because it's not the law of the land, and he was also saying that. Hold on, let me just think about, like, it was hard to follow the train of thought at times. So he also said that he didn't care about Salman Rushdie, didn't care about what happened to him. He wasn't very bothered about this attack happening to him, but he also just didn't care about him in general.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, he said that if he were to do this, if Salman Rushdie was to do what he did, write this book in a Muslim country, a country that's an Islamic caliphate ruled by Sharia law, then it's justified that he would be executed. So can you see why I'm a bit conflicted by what he said?
Absolutely. I don't want to be putting words into Al's mouth just because he's not on the call anymore.
I know.
But I think that he was confusing what is to what ought to be.
I saw your message. You're saying that. So yeah, please just elaborate on that.
So I agree with him on the idea that there are dictatorships and there will continue to be dictatorships. there will be injustice in the world for as long as the world exists, as long as humans exist. This is what is. This is just unfortunately what happens. But that does not mean it is right. If, I don't know, like let's take a look at the concentration camps in China, for example. I want to bring it
For
to like
the
Muslim
Uyghur
perspective.
Muslims. Yeah.
It is happening, but does that mean it's right? No. And I feel this is a very important distinction that maybe we were not getting at, or he was not getting at when he was talking. Because I know how when he was talking about how if you see injustice or if you're in a situation like this, you can just leave. And please don't take offense to this, Al, but this is not a very thoughtful idea at all.
And he did take it back. He did.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
did take it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I might have missed that part. Because not everyone can do that, and a lot of times it's pretty tough to be able to just leave your oppressors.
Yeah. Well, if I can just interrupt for a second and just ask your opinion on this. What I was trying to explain to Al was what Salman Rushdie might have been trying to do and explore in his book. By the way, his book isn't necessarily even critical of religion overall. Like when I finished reading it, I felt like it was more open-ended than just saying religion or spirituality or belief in this God is a wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was more just exploring the kind of toxic behaviors of people within a religion as well as the religion itself. But anyway, keeping that aside, the point I was trying to make was, what if you're living in a country and the oppressor is Islam?
Yeah.
If you just have this belief that Islam is this perfect, unadulterated thing that we should unerringly follow, that this is the truth, then when there are problems, you are the problem, Potato Apostato. you're the one who's at fault. It can't be the system. It can't be the state.
Yeah.
It can't be the laws, because the laws are from the perfect creator. And so what happens is you have this toxicity building in your society where people, let's say, they don't conform to what the laws say because of who they happen to be.
Mm-hmm.
You're a member of the LGBTQ community, or whatever. Then you're stuck in this place where your identity is a sin, and you have no place to go.
Oh, I know that all too well.
Okay, so this is what I was trying to explain. And when that's the case, there's no outlet for you to do anything, because, as he said, if you're being pragmatic, what you do is you stay silent or you just leave. And when you leave and stay silent, nothing changes. And this is I didn't say this to him, but like one of my concerns about Islam is it's so resistant to change and evolution, although it has changed and evolved, even though Muslims will dispute that, over the centuries. And perhaps we do need people like Rushdie writing these books just to provoke. Yes, it is provocative, because the provocation wakes people up and gets them asking questions. So yeah, what do you think of that?
I'm gonna agree and disagree with
Okay.
you on that. So I definitely agree that people like Rushdie, like a book like this, will provoke Muslims and will get some people to think. But as someone who, like, I did not know, like, when I was still Muslim, I did not know much about the Satanic Verses. Never heard of Salman Rushdie at all. But whenever anything that would be provoking to Islam would happen, let's take Charlie Hebdo, for example, my initial thought would not be, is there something wrong with Islam? My initial thought would be, this is not Islam. Islam is perfect. This does not represent Islam at all. And Islam is just still perfect. Because it just is. you don't take the extra, or at least for a lot of people, it took me a while to take the extra step to be like, well, why? Okay, let's take a moment and dissect this. Is Islam perfect? Like, what is going on over here? Like, why is there a pattern of violent actions being attributed to Islam that then Muslims keep on saying this is not true Islam? Like, what's causing the pattern over here?
Because we're imperfect, is what they'll say.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel that a lot of people, at least from my own background, they're so indoctrinated to just blindly believe that Islam is perfect. Islam is 100% perfect. You have to find the reason why, like, you have to find the justification to everything that happens, every negative thing that happens on behalf of Islam. You, as a good Muslim, have to find the justification because it's already established that Islam is perfect.
Well, because the justification exists, it's there. That's the belief.
You just have to find it.
Yeah.
And if you don't find it, then you are not a good enough Muslim. You the shaitan is whispering in your ear. There's just it's so hard for so many people to just get themselves out of that loop. And I agree that things like satanic verses or anything that can be provocative, they're important. But we see that because we're on the outside. But for people on the inside, they don't see that. And I know that because that used to be my perspective. And I don't know how we can get more people on the inside to actually just take a moment, pause, and think.
Well, here's what I would say. I think you make a good point just at the very end there, that, yeah, a lot of Muslims don't see it that way in terms of this provocative thing is making me re-examine things. But what I think happens is, especially when you're living in a global society like we're living in today, and you have Twitter and you have news coming in from all over the world, and Muslims all over the world are seeing the news of people condemning, high-profile people condemning this thing, and the shock of what happened. Mm-hmm. The change in conversation happens despite them, and it becomes part of the cloud of conversation in the world that they live in. So do you see what I mean? I think it does still have an impact, even if the Muslim isn't aware of it. Even
I do see what you mean, but okay, so but
believe me, I'm still as cynical as you.
Yeah, I just find it hard to just get a grasp of that idea, because as much as I want to believe that Muslims will like see the truth if it's right in front of them, unfortunately, I know that it's not that simple. So when I first heard about the attack, I don't know why I did this, but the first thing that I did was to go to Arabic news channels, and I just wanted to read the comments on there.
And what did you find?
I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss over here, but oh man, that was terrifying, because those are not extremists. At least I hope not. Those are. Oh, go ahead.
What would you say then, after reading those comments, to a Muslim who says this does not represent true Islam?
Read the comments.
Just read the comments.
Just read the comments. Everybody in the comments was celebrating the fact that he got stabbed. People saying, "Oh yeah, like there are still good Muslims out there. He deserved it. He had it coming. Took people long enough. Just Allahu Akbar, like God's justice is finally arriving," and more more punishment is going to come in the afterlife. It was terrifying because, again, you don't expect people in your community, you don't expect your family, your friends to have these thoughts. But once something like this happens, and you just read their comments.
Yeah. I should mention that obviously we can't know for sure if the people commenting are actually Muslim or not, or even though it seems pretty obvious.
Here's
But
where I'll disagree with you.
oh, go
So
ahead.
I definitely get where you're coming from. I definitely get the skepticism and trying to give Muslims the benefit of the doubt. But I'm not talking about like one or two comments here. I'm talking about like an entire YouTube comment section, hundreds of comments. 98% of them are celebrating in the name of God. Allahu Akbar, this happened. Alhamdulillah, this happened. Yeah, like, is there a possibility some of these people might not actually be Muslims? Sure, let's go with that. But I I would say it's pretty obvious that at least most of these people are actual Muslims.
Mhm.
It's pretty
Yeah,
hard. It's pretty hard for me to think.
which is
otherwise.
really unfortunate. In the video that I recorded yesterday just about the attack, I said at one point that, I lived in the Muslim world for half my life, almost half my life, and I know the conversations that are happening. I know what people are saying, and there are Muslims who will say this to other Muslims, but they will not say it in public. Like, let's say if they're living in a country like Canada, where I am, they won't say anything about it to their coworkers or whatever. But I know that they're going to be saying behind closed doors, "Good, someone finally got Salman Rushdie." And that's the thing that's so horrible. But the worst thing is the ones who say they might think it was horrible, they might think it was a terrible thing, but they'll just say, "Well, what did he expect?
He had it coming."
This is what you get when you speak against the Prophet, when you make fun of the Prophet,
And
when you offend Muslims."
And
So
like,
it's like
don't
the
let
one last thing I just want to make a comparison, just like really highlight it for people. It's like the people who look at the battered wife, like the wife who's being abused,
Mhm.
and they'll say, "Well, what did she expect if she still stays with her husband who beats her?"
Yeah. It's so scary to think about because, again, like you said, you know that the people who are like saying these things, they're not like they're not the people in ISIS, for example. They're just your family. They're just your coworkers.
Your neighbors, yeah.
And hold on, I had a thought in mind, but it escaped me.
Well, while you're trying to think of it, maybe this will jog your memory. What would you say to that poll question I have in the live chat, which everyone is welcome to vote for? Do you think Islam is to blame for the attack? With what we know yet, like so far.
So I voted yes, but I do want to give some more context to that.
Okay.
I definitely believe that Islam is responsible for this because of the fact that I know that the Muslims or maybe lots of the Muslims watching might disagree, but you can take whatever you want out of Islam. So if you want Islam to be the religion of peace, you'll find things to support that in either in the Quran, in the Sunnah, wherever you get your information from. If you want to be more on the conservative side, but not the violent side, you can find that in the Quran. If you want to take Islam as let's kill those who oppose us, you can still find that. And these things are not hidden. They're being said on public platforms. People like Zakir Naik, people like what's his name? Ali Dawa, like the people who are on public platforms being watched by millions of Muslims. They're saying that out loud. They're saying there are rules for it. We're not savages. There are very specific rules on who to kill, how to kill them, who gets to make the order of killing them. But the fact is, you're still gonna get killed. So you can take whatever you want out of Islam, and maybe even other religions as well. I'm not as knowledgeable about other religions, but for Islam, you can totally find justification for assuming that the person who attacked Salman Rushdie was motivated by the fatwa that came against him. You can totally find justification for that. So yes, I would 100% hold Islam accountable for that.
Well, thank you so much, Potato. Is it okay if I just call you Potato?
Yeah, for sure.
I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts. I think you did very well, considering this is your first time. I'd love for you to come on again in future live streams. I hope you can do so, because it was really interesting learning your perspective, and you're very well spoken.
Oh, thank you.
And I know you said that we disagree, but I think our disagreements aren't really that disagreements.
Yeah.
I think we see things much the same way. So thank you so much again. And I would have loved to talk longer, but I have to get to the next few callers.
Yeah, for sure. Don't worry, I'll be back for more live streams.
I'm glad to hear that.
All
Thanks
right,
again.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure's all mine.
Have a good one.
Bye. Thank you so much, Potato Apostato. I love that name. We have a few new people in the live chat. So Adonai, sorry if I mispronounced that. I recognize your name from previous live streams. Good to see you too. Hassan Radwan is also here. Hi, Hassan. Hassan says, those who say this is not true Islam need to stop deflecting and ask themselves if that's correct. Then why does Islam lend itself so easily to these false, and false is between quotations, versions of Islam? Yeah, very well said. And Robert says, live streams are like potato chips. You can't have just one. Thank you for that, Robert, as well. So yeah, I just want to remind everyone that there is a poll in the live chat. Is Islam to blame for the attack on Salman Rushdie? As things stand right now, it's about the same as it was about an hour ago. So 73 votes, 81% say yes, 8% say no, and 11% say we don't know yet. All right, and hi, Time Space. Time Space is also here. Time Space is a frequent caller in the past. And Nemesis is also here. Hi, Nemesis. Okay, so next up is, it's always a pleasure to have you here. Reverend Tacos is on. Reverend Tacos, can you let me know in the private chat if you're good to go? Reverend Tacos is good to go. So only thing I'll ask, Reverend, I know you like to talk about all sorts of things, but if we can keep it on topic, I would really appreciate it. All right. Adding you in 3, 2, 1.
How's it going, folks?
Hi, Reverend. How's it going?
It's going good despite all the ugliness.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, I wish there was a better occasion for doing this live stream, but yeah, unfortunately it's a really horrible thing that happened. And I guess the question I want to ask you is, what were your thoughts when you saw the news about what happened?
Well, to play like the neutral role, I think in reality, it's my opinion that human beings in general, according to my opinion, are all wacky. Because I know I'm wacky. And I know a lot of my friends are wacky and goofy and kind of like out there. So in reality, as far as my opinion goes, this stabbing was not a shocker at all. Because if we go back in history, many people have tried to take out many other people, like George Harrison was stabbed, John Lennon was shot, JFK was assassinated, and we had Lee Harvey Oswald, who was also like a wacko who claimed to be a patsy. And then we had the guy, John Wilkes Booth, who tried to assassinate Lincoln. So throughout history, people have always tried to take other people out for motivations and personal views of which only they are privy to. So this guy that tried to take out Salman Rushdie, was he probably a wacko? Yeah. Was it his religion? Maybe. Was it other things, other factors? Yeah. I mean, people generally tend to do hit pieces like this for many personal reasons, and we don't even know. We don't know we don't know the dude. All we can infer is why he did it. Maybe his religion, his ideology, spirituality. Maybe he wanted to make a name for himself, just like the guy that tried to take out George Harrison with a knife. Yeah. So throughout history, people have always been wackos looking to do something in order to become a famous person. Do it for glory. Look at me, I did it. I did it. Then you look at like guys like that wacko Charlie Manson, who wanted Helter Skelter, who want to bring on the race war. He was wacky too, and people will always do wacky stuff. So is it religion per se? No, I think religion preys on people's psychosis and people's like human nature. Underneath the surface, we are all like wackos.
Okay, I completely agree with you, Reverend. You make a bunch of very good points. Here's the question I ask for you, and this is what I would say is my concern about religion, and when that's the factor, a contributing factor. So when we talk about, say, something like communism, or something like even capitalism, or they did it for money, they did it because for love. So it is possible, I suppose we can't rule out that maybe Salman and this individual were both sleeping with the same woman and it was a love triangle situation. That's why he stabbed him. I don't know. We can't eliminate that 100%, obviously. But here's my thing with religion specifically. And this is a thing that's unique about religion. You can dismiss communism and say, this is a man-made, flawed ideology that doesn't work. You can say the same thing about capitalism. The scary thing to me about religion is when you're taught that this is the truth of existence, of the meaning of life, that this message of this religion is coming to you from the creator of everything, then and you're going to get the reward of eternal paradise, let's say, if we're just talking about Islam. That carries with it a profound weight in swaying the mind of someone who's troubled in a way that something like communism, capitalism, greed, love of a woman or whatever doesn't. Do you see my point?
Yeah, essentially, God is just a false sense. Wait, hey, Jimmy, you said that wrong. God is just, in a sense, the false self. He's everything that we are not. He's powerful. He's strong. He's in control. He controls destiny. He controls people. He controls nature. He controls everything. Everything, he owns everything. Like sort of like a gang boss, a leader of like a gang organization. So that's what God is. It's just a false sense, false self of sense. Hey, I'm getting it wrong. Anyway, yeah. Now, communism, for example, people could kill for communism. I mean, I'm pretty sure if Stalin said, "Hey, give me your best 100 hitmen. I need you to take out this guy," people will line up just for the privilege of like working towards the state. If Stalin said, I need 100 good hitmen to take out this one guy, you know the lines are going to line up, far exceeding 100 men. So we have this with Chairman Mao, the Maoist. Remember Maoism with his book?
I mean, it was before my time, so I don't remember it.
People were willing to
but
die.
I'm aware of it. Yeah,
people were willing to die and fight for Mao's cause in the Cultural Revolution. So yeah, religion preys on people's emotions, just like secular religion, secular theology, secular politics. So it's all pretty much the same thing. So when you think about, well, what is religion? Religion is like a theocratic state where God's in control, and you got the mouthpiece that says, God told me this, God said this, we must obey God. Well, Chairman Mao could be God too. Or look at the leader in North Korea. He's technically God. So
which is also, well, that's the aspect of it that's the dangerous thing, when you assign the divine to it. So that's what I mean by the distinction. I'm not saying I support communism, but you can't. I don't think there's many communists who will say that communism is the natural order of the universe that's ordained by the divine, and that is the way things are meant to be, and this is the natural order of existence. So in that sense, it doesn't have that powerful weight to it where you can't challenge it. You can challenge communism. This is one of the reasons why communism has fractured into so many things, because people know it's man-made, and then they have that freedom to alter it and modify it.
Well, that's true. With religion, it's like if you have like a deity that says this comes from me. We've had deities over the past that have faded away. Like hardly anyone like takes Zeus literally. And with these Abrahamic traditions, eventually at some point in time they're going to dwindle away over maybe the next, I don't know, century, 300 years, 1,000 years from now. But we're just stuck with it. I think religion just preys on people's emotions. It offers them something. It gives them a sense of comfort. It gives them a sense of like something to reach forward to, a goal in mind. Like with the dude that stabbed that Salman Rushdie character. In his mind, if we try to like tap into his mind, we don't have access to his mind. But in his mind, what can you infer he gains from this? Like he's going to spend time in prison. His life's pretty much over. He's going to become someone's prison, rhymes with witch. So he, at the end of the day, he's not really gaining much. Except a bunch of like hardcore wackos who think, yeah, man, you're the man, bro. You're the man, bro. You suck it to the man, bro. But in the prison cell, he's somebody else's witch. So like, what's in his psychology, in his psychosis that said, you know what, I'm going to do this because I want to make a name for myself. But like, what does he have to gain from it? In reality, not much.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like this, and this is just speculation because we don't know about this individual, but we know from other instances of Muslims doing things like this is that they believe that they're going to get that, as a Potato Apostato said earlier, that you think you're going to get that reward of eternal paradise. And so if you truly believe you're getting an eternal paradise, then what's spending 40 years in jail? And maybe you're mistaken about that. Like you think that's a great thing, and then you spend 20 years in jail as someone's prison witch, as you said. Then you think like, what have I done? Like there's no way I could have done this. So I think that's the element of it that I think is the part that scares me about religion specifically. And yeah, it's this. It holds when you start treating anything as a religion. So I just want to highlight a few comments by people. So Robert says, there's an increasing number of people, including yours truly, who view their religions as man-made, but still enjoy them anyway. So I think that element of it, if you view it as man-made, and then you can kind of have wiggle room in how you interpret it and how you perceive it. And so that kind of form of religion I'm less opposed to, depending obviously on what that religion espouses or advocates for. And Robert also says they might not say, and this is about communists, they might not say it was ordained by the divine, but very many communists view communism as a natural order of things. So I think that's still different, because we as human beings are also part of nature, and so we're influencing what this natural order of things looks like. We're not saying that it's ordained by the divine, which is the thing that, as you described, is the false self that's supposed to dictate everything. So with that being said, Reverend, here's my next question for you. In your opinion, is there a risk when things like this happen that people will be scared to say anything against, in this specific context, Islam?
Oh, you mean like censorship? Yeah, I think some people would be kind of scared off. It would be no different than like taking on the neighborhood bully to take back your city from the neighborhood bully. Like if you live in a city with like gang members who run your city, and they're demanding you give them protection money to run your little grocery store. Yeah, and if you like find out, oh, some of the guys in the neighborhood are not paying their protection money, they ended up in the river. Yeah, it's gonna scare people off. Some people will be like, oh no, this ain't worth it. I mean, I'm gonna have to curb my speech. Will some like Muslim activists, get scared off? Yeah, probably. Sure. It's human nature to get scared off.
Yeah. Well, it just makes me wonder, and this is something I brought up yesterday in yesterday's video, is would a publisher publish the satanic verses with the content that it has that is known to offend Muslims today? If Salman Rushdie wrote this book today, would he be able to?
No, it would. There's no way it would be published today. No, not in the woke culture that we live in today, the wokeism. Oh no, even Archie Bunker, the sitcoms of the '70s, like Sanford and Son, and all those like outrageous TV shows that we loved watching as children, as kids in the '70s. No, you couldn't make Archie Bunker All in the Family today in 2022. Not even Sanford and Son. No way. That book Salman would never be published today. Oh hell no! They'd be like, oh hell no, you ain't gonna publish that. Shh, it would be like bad for business.
It would be exactly. It would. The publisher would think, oh, we're going to be perceived as Islamophobic. The publishers might actually be concerned for their safety.
They'd be scared. Well, it's not worth it. I'm not gonna get taken up for this book. Oh hell no! You can't even have a reboot of All in the Family, the Archie Bunker show, or the Jeffersons. It's the same thing. It's like people get scared off. Like, oh hell no, oh hell no.
But that's kind of scary, isn't it? Because then you start to wonder, is it the case then if you just say that you're offended and make a lot of noise about it and threaten people?
Well, that's the goal. Well, ultimately, that's the goal. Well, he wants to become a martyr. He's going to take out this Salman dude because he's doing it for the pride of the people. And we're just going to take this guy out because we're going to send a message, don't mess with us, like a mob boss would do to his neighborhood community. And yeah, that's the ultimate goal, to scare people off, to censor people, shut people down, shut off the conversation. It's like here in the United States, we have the left versus the right. Are we going to shut down, the orange man from Twitter, or can we bring him back? It's the same thing. People will use threats of violence and fear and, social ostracization in order to get their agenda going. It's always been like this. This is nothing new. So yeah, I mean, it's sad. It's like controversial. Yeah, Salman was whacked, got stabbed up, but it's just nothing new. It's been going on for centuries, thousands of years.
Yeah, and if we were to just follow the logic, I suppose, of Al, the Muslim caller from earlier, then the pragmatic thing to do would be to just say nothing, because then you wouldn't be at risk of being killed.
Well, in reality, those short-term events where you're taking out Julius Caesar, you're going to take out, a prominent writer, author, Socrates, whatever, he drank poison, I think, that dude. In the short term, like terrorist acts of violence, threats of violence, in the short term, it does have an effect. But long term, moving forward, those threats kind of fade away, and then people get back to their position prior to the event. So this short term, event is not sustainable. Yeah, some people will be scared off, but majority probably won't, and they'll start to move forward. They'll become stronger and say, you know what, we're not going to let these guys scare us off. We're going to become stronger. We're going to empower ourselves. We're not going to be afraid. But yeah, short term, yeah, people will be scared. But long term, probably not.
I hope you're right, and I think I do agree with you, because it always seems more intense in the beginning, and then things kind of settle down.
I mean, look at the Nazis. They burnt all kind of books. Book burning. They even tried to destroy like H.G. Wells' books. They burnt those as not being friendly to the state. But we still have H.G.L's works. We still have his works of science fiction. So the Nazis couldn't completely eradicate his books and other books. We still have copies of those books. They couldn't possibly burn every book on the face of the earth. They can try, but they're gonna fail ultimately. So yeah, these short-term actions, if you will, they're very short-lived. Nobody really takes them seriously. I mean, some do, but the extremists always inevitably fail.
Very interesting perspective, Reverend. And you remind me to just mention that if anyone is interested in buying the Satanic Verses, the book that was at the center of all this. I left an Amazon link in the video description below, and I also left a link to an audiobook version that's just available for free on YouTube. So if you want to listen to it, the link's in the video description as well. And yeah, sorry with that, Reverend, I gotta go. We've got a couple more callers. Thank you for coming on as always.
Well,
is there anything you want to say before I let you go?
Actually, I think we laid it all out.
Okay.
And ultimately, moving forward, yeah, we pretty much figured it out.
Yeah, I think it was a very productive call. So thank you so much again, Reverend. I hope to see you again in the next live stream as well.
All right, you guys.
All right, take care, Reverend.
And keep on keeping on. As one great guy once said, whoever the hell his name was.
Keep on keeping on. All right. All right. Thank you so much for that, Reverend. Pleasure as always. And we have Music Guy here. Hey, Music Guy. Thanks for joining as always and for moderating as always as well. Good to see you. And okay, so I do have a few more callers in here. So I'm not sure if I'm going to have the time to get to everyone. Sorry for the people who just joined right now. Time, space, and Adonai. I'm not sure if I'm going to have time to get to you, but we'll see how the calls go. Friendly Muslim, if you're still there and ready to go, I'd be happy to have you on. Okay, Friendly Muslim is ready. Okay, so I'll have you in 3, 2. Oh, really dragging out this countdown. 3, 2, 1.
Hello.
Hi, Friendly Muslim.
That was an excellent countdown. It was a bit slow, and then suddenly it sped up.
It averaged out to the normal one in the end.
Yeah, we got there in the end. It was fine.
Yeah.
No. So this topic is interesting. I've also shared in the private chat a link to a story. I don't know if you want to share it, but it would be interesting because it actually is a concise breakdown of his history and what he's actually gone through. I didn't actually realize how many attacks he's actually gone through also. So first of all, I have spoken on other platforms on this. Hi, Hassan. The first thing is obviously the Muslim Council has condemned the attacks. I know we're on Twitter, so if you see my Twitter, the last 3 things that I've published have been Muslims coming out and basically. So there was the MACB, the Independent put an article titled "I am a Muslim," and I condemned these attacks. This attack on Salman Rushdie, essentially, because I had spoken on Harris, and we got into a discussion about this, whether as Muslims, do we, every time there is something that happens, are we required to stand out and say, yes, we condemn something? Should we be asked about it? Are we allowed to just go on with our lives? And so we were having a discussion on the various points of view. Obviously, as part of my activism, I will obviously condemn any violent actions, any breakage of the law. In regards to Islam, nothing in Islam that I can see allows me to attack someone in the way this man was attacked, basically. There are laws in place, and those laws need to be followed, and that's where we sort of stand essentially on it. But I'm happy to go through the whole story in full and talk about the various aspects.
Well, so we don't know very much about why this individual did this yet. We do know a little bit about their background, and as I mentioned in the beginning of the live stream, it's been reported in the media from people who knew him that he was, at least at some point in his life, a devout Muslim. So I don't want to really get into that too much because we've already speculated a bit on the live stream. But I wanted to ask you, what is your opinion on the fatwa that was issued against him all those years ago, against Rushdie all those years ago?
Okay, yeah. So the interesting part about this, and I didn't actually know this. I saw Armin speaking about this yesterday, and he mentioned a certain leader of a country. So you've read the book,
Yes,
and so there's a head imam maybe in there that is discussed.
I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So his interpretation is that it is aimed at a certain leader of a certain country who issued a certain fatwa. And if you go through the story, it does give details of that fatwa. But I've got it here. I can read it out. So that was the 1998 fatwa. And in a fatwa, a religious decree, this certain leader urged Muslims of the world uh, rapidly to execute the author and the publishers of the book so that no one will any longer dare to offend the sacred values of Islam. Now, let's bear in mind that Saudi Arabia didn't issue a fatwa. No other, I'm not aware of any other countries other than this particular uh, person that did it. In addition, there was a 2.8 million bounty put on the writer's head. The British government immediately granted police protection uh, to him, and obviously he was under protection, and he carried on being while he was under protection and carrying on with his life. There were other people attacked around him. His translator was attacked. A publisher was attacked. There were various protests around the world. So, it's possible that the root of this is this particular verse, also about a particular leader and a particular fatwa and a particular bounty, which has then been the driving force behind this.
So I think I don't think you really answered the question. So, like, okay, do you
Which
think
part
there
did I
was
miss?
any? I'll rephrase the question. Maybe I left it too open ended. Do you think there was a proper Islamic justification for the fatwa that was issued by Khomeini?
I don't think he's got jurisdiction to issue a worldwide. No. The answer would be no. I'm
Okay,
in an.
excluding his jurisdiction, is there an Islamic justification for just that uh, command or order?
What
Like,
in
doesn't
that? So if he was, they're the rulers of their country, so they obviously
Mhm.
have can make up uh, public laws as they feel is fit based on the incitement, religious sentiment. For example, in India, um, if you're writing a book based on their gods, for example, that might go against religious sentiments. That might again the punishment could be anything from a fine, a 2-year prison sentence, and it goes up the line. So again, it would depend on the individual country. And something I want to be specific about, which I've learned, and I spoke to someone and said, we are not essentially, we're lay people. We are Muslims, and we're not lawmakers essentially, or have that in-depth knowledge of what laws and statistics as to why government laws in place. It is an interesting topic. While I was waiting, I did look at UK speech laws, and so hate speech, for example, or something that could incite hatred amongst religious figures or particular groups. Incite racial and religious hatred, as well as hatred on the grounds of sexual orientation and language that encourages terrorism. In recent times, there's been a growing debate over whether the UK needs more hate speech laws, and they are continuing to be consulted. So there are laws against what people consider hate speech and incitement. And I don't know whether a fictional book would come into play with that, because he's classed it as a fictional book. So if that's the case, then obviously no, a fictional piece would not be under that jurisdiction.
do you think it potentially should be?
What the
The novel.
I haven't read it in its entirety to make a judgment on it. Essentially,
Okay.
of how it was. I understand that he hasn't mentioned anyone in particular. He has used names, and it indicates that he's obviously insulting, characters from Islam.
Yeah,
But
it's very obvious. It's not even trying to be unclear. It's all the details and the names have just been altered essentially.
okay, so you read it. So how did you
Yeah.
feel? If you were a Muslim reading it, what would when you were a Muslim and you read it, distinguish how you would have felt about it, or whether what would be your stance on it if you're a
So
Muslim compared to being a non-Muslim?
okay, so I want to answer your question. There is something that I don't think you still didn't answer from my initial question. So you talked about the jurisdiction of leaders and what their authority is and all that. What I was asking you was specifically in your understanding of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an Islamic justification from, let's say, like the most primary sources, the Quran, the Hadith, for taking the action of executing someone like Salman Rushdie for saying blasphemous things about the Prophet Muhammad and Islam? So that specific narrow thing is what I wanted to ask you about.
From my understandings, the blasphemies were pertaining to, or conversations were based on sedition, treason, and a risk of life. That's my understanding of it. So how it translates in terms of blasphemy and the different stories from the Sirah, I've looked into and not found them to be valid. They are being shared by ex-Muslim platforms, so I am looking into them. From the ones that I've looked into so far, they're not valid in terms of being able to be used, etc. So
Okay,
no.
so there's no to understand. So in your view, and from what you've looked into, there's no Islamic justification for executing someone for saying something blasphemous about Islam.
No, not unless the impact of those words were incitement to violence, harm,
Okay.
risk of life, war. That would be my understanding of it.
If they were incitements to violence and war against Muslims, would it then be justified to kill this person?
No, they have a number of solutions that they could impose. For example, prison sentence, a warning, taking off anything that could be offensive, not publishing it, banning it. So there are a number of options available.
But if they persist,
then they would, if they, and it is a potential harm, then they would then take them out of the community by a prison sentence.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for clarifying that. I just wanted to hear what your thought was.
Yeah, and again, it also have been able to compare it. Like, for example, in the USA, there are prison terms, but they also do have capital punishment also. So where do people stand on those punishments also? Should people receive the death penalty, or should they receive life imprisonment? That's also part of a debate. So
I do agree with you there. Yeah, it is part of the debate as well. For me, and I think this ties into your question, and we're going to get back to this in a second. I'll answer your question, and then we'll bring it back. So, your question was: I've read the book. What if I was to put myself in the mindset of a Muslim, as I once was? What would I think of having read those details? So. I was the kind of Muslim, or like the way I was raised in Islam, and I was talking about this a bit earlier when I was talking to Al, was my view is that these sorts of things are nuisances, minor nuisances to the truth and power of Islam, and it's like basically taking the high road like that these things, yes, they're offensive. So to your point, yes, I would say those things are offensive to Muslims. But it's a book, first of all, and second of all, it's a book by some writer who's going to have a fleeting, very temporary existence. And the Muslim community, the Ummah, is strong, and we know what the truth is, and God is the one who's going to provide all the judgment when the time comes. So that was my. I can't tell you that this is what I thought exactly at the time because I wasn't really aware of it that much, but that was the way I practiced Islam.
I would agree with that.
Okay,
leave it to God.
I'm glad,
and
I think a lot of Muslims would say that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I had an argument. I'm finding myself having arguments with both sides and all sides also, and so I have to rectify Muslims that I speak to also, and sort of say that, listen, our position on this is we are not to ever take the law into our own hands, and who cares about what this person wrote or whatever? It's already been rebuked or rebutted, or what does it mean? And this only brings more attention to it, which
Exactly.
I didn't know what he was doing last week. I didn't know that he was writing a book. I had
me neither.
It was done, and now one person has taken an action, and now I'm talking about it. I'm getting to sort of a certain ex-Muslim wrote on a tweet that if you have a Muslim neighbor, then you should ask them about the situation, and if they don't answer, then that means that silence is complicit, which I don't agree with, because people will have different views. So me and him had that discussion also about it, and he clarified that also. So again, this was all forgotten. This man was forgotten. This book or his that won't affect anyone now. That like, it's a book written in bad taste, perhaps, or had a certain agenda. We don't have to fall for it, and Muslims who are steering on the right path carry on and live their lives and contribute to their communities, and try to live a righteous life and follow the law.
Okay. Well, I think that actually brings us very nicely to the thing that ties all the things we've been talking about together. So, to your point about potentially looking at hate speech laws and things, and what we should do with individuals who say things that have hate and that incite violence. So, I would agree with you that if someone is going out there and he's making, or he or she or whatever, they're making movies or books about like telling people Muslims are subhuman, we should exterminate them. Muslims are these these demons, they're these aliens or whatever, they're trying to take over our world or whatever it happens to be. We must kill them. So I think that needs to be addressed. The person who's saying those kinds of things, there has to be something to be done. I'm not saying kill them. No, not kill them. And I don't even know if imprison them, but if they're also tied to an organization that is then actively trying to kill Muslims, that's also a different thing. So here's my concern. My concern is that what Muslims are doing, some Muslims are doing, is they're saying there are these people who are bigots against Islam, who are Islamophobic, who hate Muslims. And when they read a book like this that makes fun of Islam, it emboldens them and gives them ammunition to criticize, to act out on Islam, beyond just criticizing it, but actually attacking and harming Muslims. And what they'll also say is that this book and the stuff in it is so offensive. So offensive to the things we hold dear, that this is automatically hate speech and violence. And by that I mean the violence in the sense of what modern day academics are saying is violence. So structural violence, verbal violence, whatever you want to call it. So my problem with that is these things are completely open to the interpretation of the person who is offended. Like, you can't link them in the same way that you can link someone directly saying in a nonfiction book or a nonfiction movie, kill Muslims. This is a nonfiction book that says things that pokes fun or satirizes aspects of Islam. And like I mentioned earlier, I don't think this book is critical of religion as a whole if you read the whole thing. So what has happened is we've allowed the sentiments of Muslims to be so offended to create this scenario where it's perceived as hate or inciting hate and violence. What if the Muslims were to behave like you, friendly Muslim? They were ignoring the book. They didn't pay attention to it and dismissed it for, the obvious provocation that it was. Then it would just filter away and it would be nothing. There would be no incitement of hate. There would be no incitement of violence. And this is the scary thing about it, where it just falls apart, and it's just completely dependent on the whims of the Muslim who's being offended. What if this Muslim offends very easily, irrationally? What if I came up to a Muslim? I know I'm talking a lot. I'm going to let you address all this. What if I came up to a Muslim who's very sensitive, very defensive about their religion for whatever reason, and I say to them, I don't think God is real. What if this person decides that this thing was very offensive, and this decides that this thing is emboldening the Islamophobes who are attacking Islam? It's not beyond the realm of possibility that some Muslims would feel that way. So that's my concern, because in the end of the day, this is just a book. It's a fiction book, and it's a satire. It's a parody. It's not advocating for violence against Muslims. It's not saying that Muslims are subhuman. It's relating to Muslims, if anything. So, with all that being said, what are your thoughts?
There is one thing I want to come back to you on before I forget. Okay. And so just make a note of it. You mentioned that you were concerned that Muslims who say, yes, I don't agree with it, but really they're kind of like, okay, yeah, he got what he deserved, along those lines. So just make a note of it. I'll stand corrected, and we will. Let me answer
and
this,
then we'll move on.
We'll get to that. Yeah. And
okay, I'll just adjust slightly what you said. So what I think is that there's some Muslims who will not publicly, especially if they live in a Western country, they won't publicly say, let's say, to their white coworker, what they actually think. So they might not even talk about.
Why would their coworker have to be white or of any color?
Well, okay. What matters is they're non-Muslim.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so they might not even talk about Salman Rushdie at all. They might not pay attention to it. But within their household or in their own minds, when they see the news, they're thinking, good, this person deserved this, or I'm glad this finally happened to them. This is my concern. And I obviously can't give you any sources or research to prove that this is factually correct. This is based on my experience of living amongst Muslims for almost half my life.
And also from a Muslim perspective, and being a Muslim that is practicing and is around Muslims, they also might go, oh no, why this has happened? And it causes them anxiety because of all the backlash, because their children might get punched in the face at school. Their kids might get bullied at school. We are subject to, Muslims are being subject to attacks also.
Well, to your point, it's also possible that someone is thinking both things we're talking about. Good, he deserved this, but also I'm afraid of the kind of repercussions my children will get in school because of it. That's possible, isn't it?
Yeah, no. So I want to clarify both positions. That there are. I think it's difficult for us to project what other people may be feeling in their hearts, or anything like that. In their own home, they might be like, all right, well, he's he's a so and so. and that's just a reaction they're having to that individual. It is what it is. People have different feelings towards different figures.
Yeah, and as
yeah.
Al said, there's 1.8 billion Muslims or whatever it is now, and they all you can't say they all think the same exact thing. Like, it's just impossible.
Yeah, I mean,
You're gonna
this is
get
where
something across the spectrum.
Yeah, and even with this fatwa, if it was such legislation it was holding, then this guy wouldn't have been around for as long as he's been. If everyone was like, okay, this random leader in a country has issued a thing and said all Muslims need to do X, Y, and Z, and they didn't, then okay, that's we're not going to break the law, and do it. But obviously, there is one person, and it only takes one, and that's the whole thing. It only takes one person
It
to do
does.
a one act, and we're all talking about it. And but the problem is also that I've got 3 people and 3 organizations that have condemned it, and nobody's talking about it. And that's another side of the coin also. The people that are speaking out about it, and condemning it, aren't getting the same amount of exposure as the people that are speaking about it also. It's something we
I
have to
think you
contend
make a
with.
good point with that, because and I hope you can respect that in this live stream and in my video yesterday, I did explicitly say that many Muslims have spoken out and condemned what happened to Salman Rushdie, because you do make a point that we don't want to just veer from one extreme to another of suddenly vilifying all Muslims or saying all Muslims are complicit in this. My feeling more is that it's unfortunately the case where the root of what incited or motivated this has to be found within Islam. So I'm not talking about Muslims here. I'm not talking about what Muslims believe or what they do individually. I'm just saying it's coming from this source. So I do want you to address that, but I think we should go back to just the earlier thing that we were talking about, which was, just to summarize what I was saying, and I wanted to hear your opinion on this, is my concern that when we look at these hate speech laws is that they can be interpreted upon the subjective feelings of being offended of or subjective fears of an individual, when they might not be rational or reflective of the actual impact of what the supposed hate speech or inciting of violence speech is. So my question is just what your thoughts are on that.
So could you just repeat that last?
I'll try. I'm sorry. I'll try to simplify it again. So there's hate speech that clearly incites violence, like just directly incites violence. My concern is that there are some people who are just being offended by certain things that are not directly inciting violence, and saying that they're inciting violence because they happen to be offended by them. And there seems to be a degree where some people are being offended by some things that aren't very offensive or are relatively harmless, or coming from, in this case, a fiction book.
Okay. So
There we go.
So some people, let me just break it down in another way. So some people will straight away jump to this person's an Islamophobe, and it wouldn't be in line with what an actual Islamophobe would be, for example. Is that what you're trying to say? Or people are using something that may not be offensive, and saying,
Okay.
well, this is offensive, and therefore you're attacking us, and using that as a reason to then attack back. Am I lost here?
You're right. You're right, but like let's use something else just to make the distinction even more clear. So what some people are doing is they're looking at one thing that's, let's say, someone saying, I hate Muslims, they're subhuman, and they're lumping it in with someone making fun of the Prophet Muhammad for having prostitutes as wives. This is not what's in in the satanic verses exactly, but
Mhm.
so we have these two things, and my concern is that um, some people are being offended by both equally and saying that they're equivalent as hate speech inciting violence
Okay,
because of the
so
level of offense that they take to talking about the Prophet Muhammad's wives as prostitutes.
yeah, obviously. Okay, right. So with that, are we looking for a solution essentially, rather than, because all right, fine, you identified what a problem is. Then is the solution then having conversations, making
I think
clarifications,
so.
ensuring that on a grassroots level, Muslims are able to compose themselves, react in a way that is best, uh, react in an intelligent way, rather than letting emotion take over.
Yes. So I would agree 100% with everything you just said. So what I was describing to you is my concern that this is not what's happening. It wasn't what was happening in the early days of the fatwa when there were riots throughout the Muslim world and in the Western world as well. And it's not happening today. I can't talk about the UK as much or other countries, but in Canada, where saying saying anything that's critical of Islam, it, not all Muslims, but some Muslims are quick to just toss it into the Islamophobic hate speech pile.
Yeah, and that does happen.
And what
I've
what I would say is what you said is a solution to that.
Yeah, it's education and people speaking up. I've had to. Uh, Someone, I was on a panel, and someone called me an idiot and condemned me for speaking to ex-Muslims. That this guy's a joke, and he sits on panels and talks to people or Islamophobe. Uh, I then obviously had to explain uh, clearly that it's not a case that there may be Islamophobes. These people have family who are still Muslim. They have concerns. There are things that happen in the Muslim world, essentially, that go against the prophetic teachings, and they are highlighting it. And there is risk of life, and there is harms that are being done. And yes, you may think from the outside that it may be that case, but maybe from the internal aspects of looking at what they're actually trying to say or the point that they're trying to make, a lot of these people are preventing not even, harm and risk of believers, non-believers, and human rights essentially. And that's what you really need to look at also. So yes, I am part of the education process, um, and being a bridge of being able to conduct conversations with you and other ex-Muslims, obviously.
Yeah, and
People are
I
quite
appreciate
well
that.
aware of me,
Yeah,
of the
and
conversations I have.
that's I really admire that you do that, and I'm sorry that some Muslims have kind of had this negative reaction to you to speaking with ex-Muslims, because I mean, what's the solution then? That we just all stay in our own bubbles, hating on each other without understanding where the other side's coming from?
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean,
it's just going to make
it's
things
been,
worse, clearly, right?
yeah, and I said that you don't realize that if we had better dialogue, then there wouldn't be so much confliction in places. We'd agree on most things. We don't want innocent lives being taken. We do want justice. We don't want vigilantism. We want um, better dialogue where we're not insulting each other. We are conversing in an intellectual manner and talking about solutions and problems. And that's what I hope to achieve. And could you just highlight a comment by one of your commentators, Amisha Hector?
I was just about to
Yeah,
highlight. Is it the one where she's asking a question?
you're defecting, solutions must be provided. That comment.
Hold on, I'm trying to find that one. Oh, I see it. All right. Okay. So Misha Hector says, "Friendly Muslim, you're deflecting. to me, solutions must be provided. Muslim community needs to take ownership and find solutions to prevent such attacks. So before you address that, friendly Muslim, I'm going to give you the question in a slightly different way. So here's another thing from Misha when asking about solutions. So when we talk about education, when we talk about dialogue, what do you think are the things that Muslims should be educated about, and what things should they be talking about to address these kinds of things in any way that you believe that they can be addressed through the Muslim community?
So I'm part of behind the scenes, someone who's trying to organize these sort of conversations. I was on a panel and we were talking about free speech, and I aired my concerns that are we doing enough as people that are in the dawah, people that are part of a Muslim community, to ensure that our youth are not inheriting bad habits or not inherit. We're giving them the knowledge on how to deal with these things, because it just takes one person to react, and months of people not reacting, doing the correct behaviors goes out the window. And the example I gave was that there's a chap in Speaker's Corner who shouts and screams, Muhammad is and uses the P word, and he's a Christian evangelist. And he'll go up to people literally in their faces and scream. He'll be spitting while he says that. And he's been doing it for months. And no one reacted. And people were told, stay away. Even when he's coming up to people and screaming, people were told, stay away, do not react to this. And one individual did. After months, he gave him a slap. And that video was clipped and went viral, essentially. So I said, in response to that, we need to keep on pumping out this message to our youth, to people that are coming into these situations. Do not react. It does more harm than good. You need to ensure that you are sticking to the law, etc., etc., etc. And we need to be providing education continually. And so we're working on it. I'm trying to encourage more streams, and talk to the bigger channels about doing something on a regular basis that encourages these sort of discussions. And they have been taking place.
Okay.
Sorry, my voice is going.
No, it's okay. You can take a moment. I just wanted to highlight this comment from Nemesis. Says, thanks for the link to the audiobook of Satanic Verses, which is in the video description below, and for a great show. This is my first time here, and you got yourself a new subscriber. Thank you so much, Nemesis. Glad that you've joined our little community. So, friendly Muslim, if you're able to speak again.
Yeah, no, I've just had some water.
Okay. So I just want to kind of delve a bit more into the talk, the dialogue / education point, like in a bit more detail, and then I can let you go. So a question from Tanky in the comments. Sorry, but the solution is normalizing blasphemy until the reaction isn't murder. So ignoring the wording of that for a moment, what do you think of the idea of, as you said before, not reacting, of educating Muslims to accept that blasphemy might come from some people outside the Muslim community, and maybe even within the Muslim community, but not to react to it, and to just kind of, absorb it and stick to your faith, which you know is true, and not let it affect you? What do you think of that?
Yeah, and I'd love you to highlight Hassan's comment also after this, because he makes another point. But again, speaking about it, making people aware that this is going to happen is something that is part of the education that is going to be brought throughout nationwide, essentially. And I'm trying in my small capacity, but the goal within the next sort of year is to try and make sure that in every mosque, not only are dawah people speaking about these, but in the mosques and masjids, these things are being brought up, and they have education points, which I believe are some things that are happening in line. In London, I'm aware of some mosques that are getting rebuilt, reshaped to be more community based, and that's to non-Muslims as well. And to be more welcoming to a community where they're able to engage, discuss, and talk. So that's the other side. So I do believe, within the next 5 to 10 years, there are going to be significant changes. And I hope, for the sake of everyone, that there's just better dialogue, better understanding, and people shouldn't have to be so. We can actually have a conversation. Sometimes I think people are rude and hostile because they just want to get an acknowledgement, maybe, and that's why they're doing it. And so, I'm trying to lead the way in having conversations and bridging the gap so we can speak about issues.
And I appreciate you doing that, Friendly Muslim. Thank you. Before I let you go, let's just address that live chat comment from Hassan Radwan. The idea that moderate Muslims can stop the behavior of extremists is very naive. Sure, they can condemn them, but they actually have no authority over them and follow different versions of Islam. So, what would you say to that?
Yeah, well, which is another point which Misha may not appreciate, that obviously I can't. Sometimes we say, well, what do you do about these extremists? I don't know where these people hide out. What would I have to I don't know every Muslim that attends a mosque, or I can only voice our opinions and make sure that moderate Muslims are condemning, are voicing, and looking out for behavior that would appear as a startup of something that is extreme, and extreme views, basically. So that would be it. And again, it just takes one person. You may not catch everyone, but we can try, and that's what we can do. I can't stop you. I mean, you might talk about crime prevention. That doesn't mean you're going to stop every criminal and every criminal act. I mean, just this weekend, 5 to 10 stabbings may have happened in London or in England. We've got little control, other than, all right, let's talk about knife control. Let's talk about prevention. Let's see why people are carrying knives. Why is knife crime a problem? That's all part of the process, unfortunately. We're limited to what we can do, but the wave that we're trying to start is what we want to see get bigger and make sure that we are protected. Because again, my family are then also subject to abuse when these situations come out, and non-Muslims, ex-Muslims are also in the firing line. So that's where we have to try and do better across the board. But I appreciate you for having the conversation, and engaging with the topic. So,
well, thank you for coming on, Friendly Muslim. I'm happy that you came along and joined this live stream, even though it was very short notice. And I know it might be getting late in your end of the world, so I appreciate that again.
Yeah, no, and to Ali, if he wants to reach out to me, we can talk and revisit some of the things he mentioned.
Yeah. And if he wants to reach out to me as well, maybe we can connect, because I think there were a lot of things that we disagreed about, me and him, that might be worth delving into and giving him a chance to maybe explain himself as well a bit better. So I might ask you for his contact info if you manage to get a hold of him.
Yeah, I've asked him to contact me, and then we can work something out. But thank you again.
Yeah. Hassan Radwan says always a good listen to Friendly Muslim. So
thank you very much, Hassan. Until the next time, my friends. Take care.
All right.
Be safe.
Take care, Friendly Muslim. All right, thank you, friendly Muslim. Okay, so I do have to wrap up this live stream in a bit. An update on the poll, still about the same. Is Islam to blame for the attack on Salman Rushdie? 82% say yes, 7% say no, 11% say we don't know yet. Okay, so I do have a few people in the private chat waiting to come on. So I think I can only do a couple minutes for each of you, unfortunately. But I'll try to get you all in. So, Gabe, if you're still there, I know you've been waiting a long time. Sorry it took so long to get to you. Gabe, if you're there, I can have you on. If you're there and ready, just let me know in the private chat. Okay, Gabe is there. Okay, you persevered. All right. So I'm going to add you, Gabe, in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Gabe, going pretty good. How about you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Interesting conversations.
Very, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on a couple of things.
Go ahead.
So I just maybe because I didn't understand the whole what he was saying, talking about the friendly Muslim. You asked him about whether it was justifiable in Islam to kill apostates or like for blasphemy. And he was-
Yeah, blasphemy. Yeah.
Yeah, and he mentioned and that in the West it's there's a debate whether capital punishment is okay or not, and I just didn't see the connection between the two points, because in the West they don't kill anybody for disagreeing with you. You know what I mean? So
I think he was talking about specifically if there should ever be a recourse to capital punishment when punishing people. So I think that was the specific aspect he was talking about. But you do make a good point, Gabe.
yeah, and then which leads me to the next point, like why should you kill people for disagreeing? Like, why is it in Islam that if somebody disagrees with you on the topic of religion, that they should be killed? Like, Muslim advocate that, okay, our religion is the ultimate. The word of Quran is the ultimate word and is the truth. And God is almighty. But at the same time, you take it upon you to defend God, who's almighty. Like your God, you're saying God is so strong, but you're saying that you need to defend your God. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't have an answer to that question. I like basically what I was saying a couple times in this live stream is when I was Muslim, my feeling was that these things don't matter. Like God will punish whoever deserves the punishment. God will have the final judgment, and everything else, as long as people aren't being harmed, we should just leave it in the hands of God.
yeah, exactly. And then I just want to comment on something that Al said. He was talking about. He mentioned. See, I'm Syrian. Just,
Okay.
I lived in Syria for the first 24 years of my life, and then I moved to America after the Civil War, or whatever you want to call it. And it blows my mind that some Muslim extremists, and they dare to criticize. I mean, I'm against Bashar al-Assad. Like, let me put that up front, because I think he's a dictator. He's a war criminal. He should be prosecuted and everything. It blows my mind that Muslim extremists, they criticize dictators, and at the same time they advocate that that I should be killed because I disagree with them on the topic of, theology. Like, how does that make sense to them? Like, dictators to them, a person is a dictator. It's only a dictator if they're killing them. Like, if it's safe to say that most Muslims think Saddam Hussein is a hero. He was, to them, he's not a dictator, because he wasn't killing Muslims, he was killing Shiites. You know what I mean?
He was a Sunni killing Shia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how can you say that I should be killed for disagreeing with you and then criticize Bashar al-Assad? So that's something I want to comment on. And then in regards to the question, I mean, yeah, it's a simple question. Yeah, I mean, Islam is to blame. I mean, to help people who are Muslims who are struggling with this question. If you think that the terrorist who killed Muslims in New Zealand in a couple of years ago, I don't remember the name.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't remember the details, but I do remember the event. Yeah.
If you think Christianity is to blame for that, then Islam is to blame for any, situation that happened a couple of days ago, like that.
Well, Gabe, here's my theory on what sometimes might happen amongst Muslims, and this is again just like I think a little bit of my understanding from my own experience when I was Muslim is, especially if you feel like maybe you're not the best Muslim, you don't have a very strong what's the word, discipline when it comes to praying and going to the mosque for the Jum'ah prayer and all that stuff, or maybe you're drinking, you're sleeping around, whatever it is. What I think some Muslims will do is they will overcompensate for their lack of faith in this aspect by once they see something that's becoming a big issue, like Salman Rushdie or whatever, they become very gung-ho and they say, yes, this is a blasphemer, he should be killed. And that way they kind of feel better about themselves because they're advocating for this thing and they feel like, I'm being a good Muslim here, I have the support of my community in saying this. And it's an easy issue to kind of just demonstrate your it's a way to virtue signal that you're a good Muslim. And I think you can see this even with just the celebrity culture, where people will maybe they have the same problem, but they'll very quickly snap to judgment of the celebrity and say, wow, I can't believe this celebrity did this, because that's a way for them to just feel better about themselves and their own flaws. And I think you can kind of see that with so Gabe, you probably can understand this, but a question that Syrian friends of mine always asked, well, why aren't the Gulf countries that are so rich, that have abundant resources and so much room, why aren't they taking the Syrian refugees?
Exactly. That's actually, I was talking to one of my friends about that not too long ago.
But at the same time, they will go on and on, these countries, in particular Saudi Arabia, about the Muslim brotherhood and the Muslim community and all that. Well, my theory is one is to compensate for the other. They feel they don't want Syrians to come to their country for a lot of reasons. I think they don't want them to become a burden on their society. They don't want them to become a part of their society. Because it's easier to have someone who's from a migrant worker from India come, different language, different culture, different religion. They'll come, stay a couple of years, and then they'll leave. The Syrians might never leave, and they don't want that. And so, easy thing to do is, we don't want this, but we feel bad, so we're just going to donate all this money for a mosque in, I don't know, in Florida, or we're going to just really amp up our religious talk. It's a deflection. To make themselves feel better. And I think this is why you see the hypocrisy of things like the hypocrisy of Bashar al-Assad, what he's doing, and they say nothing. And yet someone writes a book 30 years ago and they suddenly become outraged, and they put these hateful comments on YouTube or Facebook or wherever it is. This is just one theory. I don't know what you think about it.
No, I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, it all comes down to ignorance and hypocrisy.
I don't want to get you too tight on time, Gabe, but I only have a couple more minutes. So if there's anything else you want to say about Salman Rushdie, or
I said what I wanted to say, and
okay,
I really enjoyed this.
Well, thank you.
Conversation, so
thank you, Gabe. Yeah, I hope you can come on again. Hopefully we can get you on for a bit more time. I'm sorry because you were waiting for so long. Really, if there's anything else you want to say, go ahead.
No, that'll be it for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate
All right.
it.
Take care.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Gabe. So yeah, I gotta wrap up this soon. We had Adonai who came on, was waiting for a long time, but had to go. Sorry, Adonai, about that. But Adonai says, I love these streams. Please keep it up. Thank you so much. I will definitely do that. So I'm going to just leave a couple minutes for the final caller before I end the live stream. Time space. Saving the best for last. Are you still there? If you're still there and you want to come on, just let me know in the private chat if you're there. Okay, time space is not answered. Time space is here. Okay, so time space, I'm gonna get you on. Oh wait, no, I lost you. So Robert asks the question, when by the way, when are we getting a Friedman scale? So are you referring to the Zachar Naik scale and the William Lane Craig scale from my video earlier this summer? Perhaps we should do one. I'm gonna have to. So Friedman would be, I guess, for criticisms I've received from Jewish people, or maybe things that are a bit incredulous within the religious faith. I don't know. I'm definitely open to doing that, but I would have to do my research because I don't know much about Judaism, as we've discussed, Robert. Perhaps something in a future video. Thank you for that, Robert. I'm avoiding it because I'm being paid by Israel and the Zionists. You caught me. There you go. Okay, so time space is back. Time space, if you're ready to go, please let me know again in the private chat. Are you ready? Okay, still don't see anything from time space. Okay, he's here. Okay, so I'm gonna add you in 3, 2. Oh, lost you again. Okay, I'm sorry, time space. Sorry I couldn't make it work, but maybe we can do something in the next live stream. Hopefully I can catch you at a good time. I'm just gonna do a recap of the poll. So 92 votes. Is Islam to blame for the attack on Salman Rushdie? 82% say yes, 7% say no, 12% say we don't know yet. So I think we still need to know more, even though I would vote yes, it is connected to Islam, even though we don't know everything about the motivations of the assailant. It's becoming increasingly clear, and we're going to know more about it in the coming days, I'm sure. Authorities have said they believe it's tied to extremist fundamentalism. And sadly, someone seems to have acted out on the fatwa that was issued against Salman Rushdie 33 years ago. And he is doing better now, and I do wish him the best. If you want to read the Satanic Verses, I have links in the video description for an audiobook and paperback print editions, ebook versions, all on Amazon. I highly recommend it. It's not an easy read, I'll be honest when I say that. It was a challenging book to read, but because Salman Rushdie's style is just challenging to read. But it was very rewarding and a very enriching experience, and I recommend it in particular for Muslims because I think they'll be able to take a lot from it, even if they get offended by parts of it. So that being said, I hope everyone watching found these conversations, these calling guests to have valuable information to share. I thought the discussions were very provocative and interesting. I didn't agree with a lot of what some of the Muslim callers said, but I'm glad we're having these discussions in a respectful way. And I'll be back with another live stream soon. Thank you, everyone, again, for watching. Take care.